Chapter 501, All of You Will Have to Die. Chapter 501, All of You Will Have to Die. Actually, not long after he entered Shenmingqi's room, Su Zimo had already realized that his spirit energy was being restricted and he could not circulate it. However, it was already too late for him to leave by then. The power of the spirit lock flower was domineering indeed. At Extreme Foundation Establishment Realm, Su Zimo's spirit energy was rich and the structure of his spirit sea was far superior compared to other Foundation Establishment cultivators as well. With a single thought, the seas would howl and there would even be massive waves created within his dantian. But now, there was a mysterious fog shrouding his spirit sea. The waters were dead without any movement. Perfected being Song Lang sneered, with your spirit energy locked, all your trump cards such as the dragon conjuring secret skill and ethereal wings are useless. Sima Ji was smug and burst into laughter. I heard that you've got a strong physique and bloodline. But, what's the use of that? You can only run on the ground without being able to touch our clothes even. Ha ha ha. I'm Tan Hao, a formation master. Waving the long cloth he was holding, Tan Hao commented with a smile. This is merely a trap formation and is extremely common. It can trap golden cores for up to 5 days with ease. As for Foundation Establishment cultivators, Fufu, I don't know. A year? 10 years? Or perhaps, 30? Gao Hu beamed and revealed a menacing smile, declaring loudly, Kid, don't be afraid. I heard that you're strong in melee combat. I'll head over soon and play along with you. Thud. Unknowingly, Shenmingqi had struggled to get out of bed and she knelt in the direction of perfected being Song Lang, begging miserable, Master, I'm someone that's about to die. The only wish I have is for you to let him off, please. Shenmingqi's expression was dismal as she kowtowed to perfected being Song Lang. As her jade-white forehead smashed against the ice-cold ground time and again, it was stained red before long. The 5 golden cores were indifferent and unmoved. Let him off? As though he had heard something incomparably amusing, perfected being Song Lang said with a cold stare, the greatest regret of my life is not killing this little bastard personally 8 years ago, leaving him as such a potent danger. Shenmingqi's body swayed and her head spun, as though she could faint at any moment without waking up again. All of a sudden, a firm palm held her by the arm, pulling her up from the muddy ground. Su Zimo's voice reverberated in her ears, calm yet firmly, there's no need to beg him or kneel down. Zimo, I really didn't know. I truly didn't. I was the one who brought this to you. Turning around, Shenmingqi looked at Su Zimo beside her and sobbed with swollen eyes. Su Zimo did not look at her as he lowered his head and said, although our relationship has ended, there's something else I can do for you. What? Shenmingqi asked instinctively. With a soft voice, he replied, when we were young, would always stand up for you if you were bullied. Today, I'll do it for you once more. Perhaps, it might be the last time too. Before he finished his sentence, Shenmingqi's eyes were already flowing with tears. In that instant, she seemed to have returned to her childhood. Back to that carefree world without any scheming and power struggles. Shenmingqi's vision blurred. The figure before her fused together slowly with that image from her memories. Brother Zimo. Shenmingqi addressed him instinctively and her eyes shone with a glint. She seemed to have recovered quite a bit of energy with her body as well. These were the signs of a final respite before death. It was akin to the final glow of the sunset before dawn broke. In midair, perfected being Song Lang and the other 4 had varied expressions as their gazes shimmered. Liangheng, Gao Hu and Sima Ji did not seem to realize anything. However, perfected being Song Lang and Tan Hao felt something vaguely amiss the moment they caught sight of Su Zimo and were feeling uneasy. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo was way too composed. He didn't look like someone that had fallen into a trap. Perfected being Song Lang recalled every single detail of the plan and did not notice anything amiss. He truly could not comprehend where Su Zimo got his confidence from. Raising his head slightly, Su Zimo looked at perfected being Song Lang and said indifferently, indeed, your plan is perfect without a flaw. Unfortunately, you didn't take something into account. What? Perfected being Song Lang's heart sank as he asked with a narrowed gaze. It's useless even if you lock my spirit energy, all of you will have to die. Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo's eyes shone black as ink as his hair swayed naturally without any wind. The inner core in his chest circulated slowly, emitting a terrifying aura. Pust. Song Lang and the other four were shocked. Demonic chi. Not good, he's a demon. Crackle. Pang. 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 Su Zimo's tendons and bones sounded at the same time as his flesh expanded. Right in front of the five of them, that body that was initially 7 foot tall expanded instantly, growing to a height of more than 100 feet. He was like a towering ancient fiend king with a torrential killing intent. That terrifying body was filled with green veins that surfaced densely, and it shone with an indestructible metallic luster. Revolving around him were ferocious lifelike ancient demons, a wild bovine, a rock bear, an anaconda, a sanguine ape. His aura was absolute, as though it could rip everything apart and devour all life. The 5 golden cores were stunned and their minds went blank. Even with his current cultivation realm and his experience in the intermediate ancient battlefield challenging people on the phenomenon ranking, Liang Heng was startled momentarily. Initially, the 5 of them stood 100 feet above the air and looked down at that ant-like cultivator. But the next moment, a pair of bronze eyes appeared before the 5 of them, glaring coldly with a menacing aura. Every single breath caused a hurricane to howl. What kind of monster was this? That was the only thought in the 5 of their minds. Before they could react, that monster before them grinned and revealed 2 rows of sinisterly sparkling teeth. Without a second word, Su Zimo reached out with his massive palm and engulfed Tan Hao over the head, as though he was about to cover the entire skies. He grabbed downwards. Tan Hao sped away, but he was a step too late at the end of the day and could not manage to get out of Su Zimo's reach. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Tan Hao did not even manage to make a single sound before he was minced into a fog of blood without any corpse left. Run! Gao Hu was scared out of his wits and turned to flee. Roar! Su Zimo was right behind Gao Hu and took a deep breath, puffing his chest. Immediately after, he opened his mouth and let out a deafening roar. The 7 ancient demon kings that surrounded Su Zimo opened their mouths as well, roaring into the skies with a terrifying might that threatened to shake the mountains and quake the earth. Ah! Caught within it, Gao Hu yelled tragically and his figure swayed. Fresh blood started flowing down from his ears, eyes, nose and mouth. His face was covered with bloodied lines and his features contorted, causing his eyeballs to bulge out as he fell from the air, no longer breathing. He was roared to death. A golden core was roared to death just like that. That single roar contained the terrifying power of an inner core. Furthermore, Su Zimo was not the only one roaring. With the help of the 7 demon kings, his roar rippled through the heavens and engulfed everything within thousands of kilometers. Chapter 502, Heavenly Essence Swords. Chapter 502, Heavenly Essence Swords. Although the Spirit Lock flower restricted the spirit energy in Su Zimo's dantian, it could not contain the inner core in his chest. The inner cores cultivated by demons had nothing to do with spirit chi. Their cores were formed after they cultivated their bodies, refined their bones and tendons, swapped their blood in their marrow, tempered their organs and cleared their orifices. In the blink of an eye, 2 golden cores were dead. Against Su Zimo in his demon form, the 2 of them were defenseless and could not even survive through a single breath. Perfected being Song Lang and the other 2 were panicked as they turned to flee. However, their expressions changed when they arrived at the borders of the formation. Suddenly, the 3 of them realized something. Now that Tan Hao was dead, the 3 of them could not dispel his formation within a short period of time. The reason why Su Zimo killed the formation master, Tan Hao, first was most likely because he had anticipated this. This trap formation was originally prepared for Su Zimo, who would have thought that it would end up turning into their graves? They were now doomed by their own trap. Before Sima Ji could turn around, Su Zimo's engulfing palm had already arrived. Bang! Boom! Boom! Rumbling thunder resembling the galloping of horses sounded as the massive aura caused the void to tremble. Go! With nowhere to retreat, Sima Ji withdrew 2 flying swords from his storage bag and injected his power as a golden core into them. Instantly, the swords shone brightly and turned into 2 streaks of light, shooting towards the incoming palm over his head. True fire firmament incineration. At the same time, Sima Ji conjured hand seals and released a secret skill of true fire sect. A scorching flame burned in his palms. Biting his tongue, Sima Ji spat out a mouthful of essence blood that landed in the flames. Immediately, the flare shot into the heavens. Go! Fiercely, he threw the flames in his hand towards Su Zimo's face. I don't care what kind of a monster you are, burn! Sima Ji yelled with his might, as if doing so would suppress the fear in his heart. Su Zimo's expression was as cold as ever. Against his demon form body, Sima Ji's superior-grade flying sword posed no threat at all. Crack! 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 Raising his arm, Su Zimo grabbed both incoming flying swords and gripped his fist tightly before letting go. The 2 superior-grade flying swords shattered and fell to the ground as useless shards. Sima Ji and the other 2 were horrified when they saw that. What sort of a body was that? Even a superior-grade spirit weapon couldn't hurt him. Su Zimo did not dodge nor avoid when he saw the flames approaching. Opening his mouth, he blew out a massive air current. Swoosh! Accompanied by a howling wind, his scarlet demonic chi was mystifying and surged over. The flames extinguished immediately. A secret skill from True Fire Sect was extinguished by a single breath of demonic chi from Su Zimo. Die! Roaring, Su Zimo's voice was deafening like a bell. Bang! A single palm landed and Sima Ji's body was torn into pieces. He died on the spot. Don't panic. Seeing that he had nowhere to run, Liang Heng calmed down rapidly and said with a dark voice, Tsang Lang, this mess was created by you. Right now, the both of us only have a single way out, and that is to kill this bastard. Let's join forces. Perfected being Tsang Lang grit his teeth and gulped. If you've got any trump cards up your sleeves, now isn't the time to continue hiding them. Give it your all. A look of conviction flashed through Liang Heng's eyes as he swiped his storage bag and withdrew a shiny silver metal chain. Go! Hollering, Liang Heng threw the silver metal chain at Su Zimo's head. Circling down, it restricted Su Zimo's body and tightened repeatedly. His scarlet demonic chi seemed to be suppressed by the bindings of the silver metal chain and faded gradually. The phantoms of the 7 ancient demon kings surrounding Su Zimo flickered for a moment as well, showing signs of dissipating. Perfected being Tsang Lang was delighted upon seeing that and could not help but praise, amazing methods, brother Liang Heng. Liang Heng heaved a sigh of relief and declared proudly as well, this was a treasure I obtained in the intermediate ancient battlefield 80 years ago. Although it's just a supreme-grade spirit weapon, it's an imitation of the ancient emperor weapon, the demon binding lock, and is especially effective against demons. Even a pure-blooded ferocious beast will have to bow down and submit obediently if it was trapped by this. Su Zimo exerted his strength to try and break free from the silver metal chain. However, as though it was agitated, the silver metal chain bound him even more tightly and even dug into his flesh. Su Zimo's expression changed. Hee hee. Liang Heng sneered, little bastard, even though this is an imitation of the demon binding lock, it inherited the latter's powers as well. The more you struggle, the tighter the lock will contract. I'll advise you not to make things difficult for yourself. Brother Liang Heng, don't waste time talking to him. Let's kill him now lest he creates trouble for us in the future. All right. Liang Heng whipped out a cold, shimmering sword. He was actually a sword cultivator. Perfected being Song Lang summoned the supreme-grade flying sword in his hands as well, prepared to control it to slice down at Su Zimo's head. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Su Zimo reared his head and laughed with a feral gaze. Do you think that a lousy imitation chain is able to trap me? Splash. The blood chi within Su Zimo surged and his inner core churned fanatically, causing endless scarlet demonic chi to be released. The phantoms of the 7 ancient demon kings stabilized again and their eyes lit up one after another, as though they were just awakened with spirit. Break it. Roaring into the skies, Su Zimo's flesh expanded once more and his power of blood chi and inner core reached their limits. Instantly, the silver metal chain started buzzing. Liang Heng's expression changed starkly. Before he could react, there was a bang. The silver metal chain broke into dark pieces against Su Zimo's supreme demonic strength and turned into a pile of scrap metal. Die! With a maddened roar, Su Zimo took huge strides and arrived before Liang Heng within a couple of steps. He reached out with his massive palm and engulfed the latter. It was heavenly encompassing. After witnessing the terror of Su Zimo's physique, there was no way Liang Heng dared to be careless as he grit his teeth tightly. Channeling the golden core in his body, he roared, "Golden core phenomenon, heavenly essence swords." Clang! Clang! The sound of sword streaking rang through the world and reverberated within the formation. Behind Liang Heng, a massive cyclone made up of incomparably sharp swords howled over, connecting heaven and earth like a divine dragon sucking water. Before the heavenly essence swords arrived, Su Zimo already felt his skin being torn slightly. Golden core phenomenons were the strongest methods available for golden cores. When cultivators formed their cores and their golden cores were of a certain quality, they would start harmonizing with the spirit chi in their surroundings and form phenomenons. The greater the quality of one's golden core, the deeper their understanding of the Tao of the core and the more spirit meridians they had, the stronger the golden core phenomenon created. Humans were innately weak and at chi condensation and foundation establishment realm. Apart from some of the strong body-tempered cultivators, most other cultivators would be dead if they were closed in by demon beasts. However, after they formed their cores, cultivators would have a chance of cultivating golden core phenomenons and that would make up for their disadvantage. If they were able to release their golden core phenomenons in time during a fight, it would be difficult for demons to go against the might of the phenomenons. Not only that, if the golden core phenomenons were strong enough, they could easily take down ancient remnant beasts or even pure-blooded ferocious beasts. For golden cores such as the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking, even pure-blooded ferocious beasts would have to avoid crossing their paths. Chapter 503, Snapped Wings. Chapter 503, Snapped Wings. Liang Heng's golden core phenomenon, heavenly essence swords, was clearly much stronger than any other golden core phenomenons that Su Zimo had encountered. If this was before he had formed his inner core, even if he used all his trump cards such as the ancient dragonification manual and other secret skills, Su Zimo might not be able to handle a golden core phenomenon as such. But now that his inner core was formed, Su Zimo had nothing to fear. There was no one else who understood the might of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness better than him. When he attained lesser mastery of the orifice clearing section, he was already able to suppress most other cultivators of the same cultivation realm. At greater mastery of the orifice clearing section, he was almost invincible in the ancient battlefield. Right now, he had formed his core. Su Zimo believed that although he had only just created his inner core, given the transformations he experienced from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, he was certain that he could kill most of the golden cores. Clang! Clang! The cyclone created by the heavenly essence swords was already hurtling towards Su Zimo's direction. The demonic glint in Su Zimo's eyes pierced into the cyclone like 2 streaks of lightning. Boom! Without avoiding or retreating, he roared from the depths of his throat and extended both hands, receiving the incoming sword cyclone with his bare hands. Poof! 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 Wounds appeared on Su Zimo's palms and arms as the sword cyclone injured him, causing fresh blood to flow. However, after he bled, Su Zimo turned more excited instead as he grabbed the sword cyclone before him with both arms, as though he wanted to grab this long, divine dragon and suppress it. You must have a death wish. Liang Heng laughed sinisterly and controlled with his will. The heavenly essence swords intensified and the cyclone expanded, engulfing Su Zimo entirely. Mince him. Liang Heng grit his teeth with an excited expression. I'm going to tear you into pieces. Normally speaking, any living being that was dragged into the heavenly essence sword cyclone would be cut into pieces. However, it was a pity that Su Zimo was his opponent. This was someone that was even more terrifying than pure-blooded ferocious beasts. If one could focus their gaze and look into the heavy sword cyclone, they would discover that although there were many wounds on Su Zimo, none of them were deep. Some of them were merely faint marks. More importantly, even those injuries that were bleeding were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as though the wounds were recovering the moment he was injured. Liang Heng's golden core phenomenon did not manage to hurt Su Zimo at his core. On the contrary, against the scarlet demonic chi, the heavenly essence sword cyclone spin rate was turning slower. Every single sword had their strength reduced after they were tainted by the demonic chi. Before long, Liang Heng's smile gradually froze, as though he was realizing something. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The heavenly essence sword scattered. Su Zimo broke free. Initially, he was still covered with wounds. However, all it took was a few dozens of breaths and those wounds healed completely without a scar. This. Liang Heng and perfected being Tsang Lang felt their hairs stand on end as their pupils constricted. Is that all you've got? Su Zimo sneered and strode forward. Swinging his arm, his massive fist pummeled down from the heavens like a gigantic mountain. A shadow enveloped the place. Although golden core phenomenons were powerful, there was no way someone could activate them twice within a short period of time. Liang Heng did not have time to hesitate as he saw Su Zimo's incoming fist. Hurriedly, he withdrew a gigantic shield from his storage bag and it floated above his head. Thereafter, he crushed a few protection talismans immediately. Bang! Right after he did that, Liang Heng heard a deafening sound. His shield was repelled. Creak! 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 Against Su Zimo's fist, his protection talismans were akin to paper and shattered. It's over, this is where I die. Liang Heng closed his eyes and thought to himself. The next moment, he felt an immense pain surge through his entire body as his tendons and bones were torn apart. With his organs smashed, he fell to the ground, already dead. In the blink of an eye, perfected being Tsang Lang was all alone. He knew that Su Zimo had intentionally left him for last. Perfected being Tsang Lang continued to soar into the skies, trying to get out of Su Zimo's attack range. Su Zimo's eyes were filled with mockery. Although he had yet to form his golden core, he had formed an inner core and could also soar into the skies without the use of external objects. Boom! Stomping on the ground, Su Zimo leaped into the air. By the time he was in midair, Su Zimo's body had already returned to normal. As such, his speed increased significantly and he arrived behind perfected being Tsang Lang in the blink of an eye. Myriad sunlight. Sensing the wind behind him, perfected being Tsang Lang released his golden core phenomenon without even turning back. The blue skies were suddenly filled with immensely breathtaking sunlight that spread everything in a blinding manner. Unfortunately, Su Zimo was unaffected because of his immensely powerful vision. Sneering, he threw out a punch. Compared to Liang Heng's golden core phenomenon, perfected being Tsang Lang's myriad sunlight was significantly weaker. Boom! With his body in terrifying demonic strength alone, Su Zimo took the golden core phenomenon head-on and shattered the myriad sunlight. He was overwhelming everything with brute force. Poof! Perfected being Tsang Lang's figure staggered and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. That punch did not merely shatter his golden core phenomenon. The aftershock of the punch even followed through with the sunlight and struck him, causing his organs to shift position right away. Knowing that escape was almost impossible, perfected being Song Lang turned around suddenly. He did not give up against the incoming Su Zimo and channeled his flying sword, piercing it towards Su Zimo's direction. Shoo! The flying sword streaked through the air and arrived instantly. Without even blinking, Su Zimo extended his bare hands and grabbed the incoming flying sword directly. Gripping both ends of the flying sword, he snapped with force. Piak! The flying sword shattered. Su Zimo continued advancing. Tossing the flying sword in his hands to the ground casually, he arrived before perfected being Song Lang in the blink of an eye. The two of them were in a face-off. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent and his gaze was calm. However, perfected being Song Lang's hair was in a mess and he looked wretched with a frightfully pale expression. This was 8 years in the making. Although they were now reunited back in Pingyang town, it was under completely different circumstances. 8 years ago, you told me that although the inferior ant yearns for the sky, how can they ever touch the eagle's wings? Su Zimo remarked indifferently, today, I'm telling you that not only can I touch the wings of the eagle, I'm even going to snap them. Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo reached out for perfected being Song Lang's throat. Perfected being Song Lang's expression changed starkly as he raised his hands instinctively before him to defend. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold. The moment he touched perfected being Song Lang's arms, he exerted strength forward. Snap! Perfected being Song Lang's arms were snapped on the spot. Flesh hung from his broken bones that were revealed as blood flowed everywhere in a grisly manner. Ah! Shrieking tragically, perfected being Song Lang almost fainted. Instantly, cold sweat started pouring from his forehead. Striding forward, Su Zimo yanked perfected being Song Lang's hair and descended instantly. He dragged perfected being Song Lang towards Shenmingqi. With his lifeless arms, perfected being Song Lang could do nothing as Su Zimo dragged him across the mud. Chapter 504, Life Payment. Chapter 504, Life Payment. The entire battle lasted for less than 100 breaths. Standing where she was, Shenmingqi looked at everything in a daze and her mouth was slightly agape, unable to close for the longest time. This was 8 years in the making. The young man who perfected being Song Lang regarded as an ant back in this town, the person whose life's honors were removed, had now grown to such a point. 8 years ago, that young man's dignity was trampled by perfected being Song Lang and he was bullied, even nearly killed by the latter. 8 years later, perfected being Song Lang was now being dragged by the young man of the past across the ground, defenseless like a dead dog. 8 years ago, when perfected being Song Lang descended, all the mortals of Pingyang town knelt down except for a single person who stood upright and proudly. Shenmingqi could clearly remember chasing after the young man that day, questioning him loudly, "Why aren't you keeling? What does it matter if you kneel down for a while?" The young man replied, "It doesn't matter, but I am not willing to." 8 years later, that same unyielding young man yanked perfected being Song Lang down from the clouds and trampled the latter into the mud of the mortal world. Arriving before Shenmingqi, Su Zimo relented his grip and tossed perfected being Song Lang onto the ground. There was yet another yell as the latter convulsed with a pale expression. "Su Zimo, what are you trying to do?" Perfected being Song Lang's eyes were filled with fright. With a calm expression, Su Zimo looked at Shenmingqi and said, "Since he destroyed your core formation, I'll help you cripple his cultivation." "Don't." When he heard that, perfected being Song Lang's hairs stood on end and he shrieked. Su Zimo stomped down fiercely on perfected being Song Lang's abdomen. How terrifying was Su Zimo's physique. He had the strength to snap a supreme-grade spirit weapon directly. That single stomp was something that perfected being Song Lang's body could not endure. His abdomen was torn right through as grisly fresh blood gushed forth from that mess of flesh. However, that was only the wound on his physical body. Perfected being Song Lang's golden core was also smashed and more than 200 years of cultivation was lost in a single moment. Perfected being Song Lang coughed huge mouthfuls of blood with an ashen expression. With his golden core smashed, his cultivation was crippled, and that was a feeling even more terrible than death. His appearance was turning old rapidly. Right now, perfected being Song Lang was more than 200 years ago. The reason why he looked like a middle-aged man was because he had formed his golden core and his lifespan was extended. However, with the destruction of his golden core, his powers were gone as well, and he could no longer withstand the power of time. Perfected being Song Lang's hair started turning white and his skin lost its luster. This was the same for demons. After demons form cores, their lifetime's cultivations would be stored within their inner cores. With the inner cores, demons could take on human form and even speak in human tongues. However, if their inner cores were removed, they would lose their demonic powers, and those that took on human form would revert to their original state while losing the ability to speak in human tongues. Su Zimo was no longer looking at the groaning and dying perfected being Song Lang on the ground. He walked straight to the edge of the courtyard and squatted down to observe. Not long later, he stood up and continued walking around the perimeter of the formation. From time to time, he would stop and step down gently. When he left, there would be a footprint at where he stood, surrounded by web-like cracks. At the center of the footprints, there was a spirit stone that was dim without light, crushed by Su Zimo. Shen Mingqi understood what was happening. Su Zimo was dispelling the formation. With every single footstep, he was crushing a formation eye. The light surrounding the formation began to dim gradually. The formation that Tan Hao claimed to be able to trap golden cores for up to 5 days was destroyed in less than 15 minutes by Su Zimo. This was the second extreme foundation establishment cultivator in history. The number 1 weapon refinement master of Great Zhou. Formation master. Was there anything he couldn't achieve? Suddenly, Shen Mingqi came to a realization. Su Zimo had not changed the entire time. He was still that brother Zimo from her childhood who could do everything, the pride of Pingyang town. The one who changed was herself. The reason why life was cruel wasn't because it was short, but because there was no way of redoing things. For certain people and things, losing them would be for a lifetime. Gazing quietly at that figure not far away, Shen Mingqi's eyes were fixed the entire time. She did not have much time left. Before long, the formation lights dissipated into the night and the formation was dispelled, revealing the skies to them once more. The night was hazy and the moon was bright with few stars. Although a massive battle had just broken out at the Shen family, it was quiet in the town. Most of the mortals in the town were already awake due to the shock. However, how would any of them dare to show their faces in a fight between immortals? Everyone hid under their beds and clutched their blankets tightly, praying that they wouldn't be implicated. Turning around, Su Zimo whisked up the groveling perfected being Song Lang and turned to leave the Su Zimo, heading for his own residence. Shen Mingqi's body swayed as she looked at Su Zimo's leaving back view, almost stumbling. The door at the side opened with a creak and a middle-aged man ran over frightfully with a look of trepidation. Supporting Shen Mingqi, he asked dearly, "Mingqi, are you all right?" The man was Shen Nan. He was hiding in the room and did not dare reveal himself. If I hadn't followed Master and left back then, perhaps things might not be this way right now. Shen Mingqi's condition was getting worse and her consciousness was fluttering as she murmured to herself. I was the one who caused myself to be in this state today. There's no one else to blame. Immortal fate? That's nothing but a dream. Alarmed and afraid, Shen Nan hugged Shen Mingqi's swaying body and asked, "Mingqi, what's happening to you? Don't scare me. Everything is in the past and it isn't your fault." Before he could finish, Shen Mingqi turned and looked at him with a dazed expression, tears pouring down her face. "Shen Nan, I regret everything. After 8 years, Su Zimo's residence hasn't undergone much changes." Dragging perfected being Song Lang, he leaped and landed in the courtyard. The cherry flowers were blooming in the center of the courtyard. In this short period of time, perfected being Song Lang's hair had already turned completely white and his breathing was weak. Blood flowed continuously from that massive wound on his abdomen. Coupled with the fact that his golden core and cultivation was destroyed, perfected being Song Lang was aging at an extremely fast rate. One after another, wrinkles appeared as though they were etched on his face as his sockets sunk. His eyeballs were cloudy and were almost at the end of their lives. Throwing perfected being Song Lang to the side of the peach blossom tree, Su Zimo asked, "Do you know why I brought you here?" Perfected being Song Lang no longer had the strength to talk. By now, he knew that he was going to die for sure today and could only glare at Su Zimo venomously. 8 years ago, you burned Jue Feng in front of me. Even though it was a spirit beast, I viewed it as a kin. Gripping his fists, Su Zimo said coldly, "Jue Feng's ashes are buried beneath this peach blossom tree. The moment I buried them, I said that one fine day, I will use your blood and rinse it here." Suddenly, perfected being Song Lang's gaze turned incomparably conflicted. There was hatred, regret, fear and reluctance. 8 years ago, if it wasn't for Jue Feng, would have died under your true fire. Su Zimo grabbed perfected being Song Lang's head and snarled word after word with a cold intent, "Song Lang, pay with your life." Poof. Extending his fingernails, Su Zimo sliced across perfected being Song Lang's throat viciously. Fresh blood splashed out and sprayed at the foot of the peach blossom tree. Chapter 505, Burying the Past. Chapter 505, Burying the Past. The Shen family's courtyard was in a mess. Standing where she was, Shen Mingqi's expression turned increasingly terrible. There was a dark aura of death shrouding her as her consciousness faded in and out. She could collapse at any moment. Shen Nan was supporting her carefully by the side, watching everything unfold helplessly. Initially, he hoped that he and his family clan would be able to flourish instantly by relying on the fact that his younger sister had joined an immortal sect. However, all of his hopes were dashed right now. Yet, there was no disappointment in Shen Nan's heart. At this very moment, the only thing he wished was for his sister to survive. Even if they had to return to their ordinary lives in the past, it would be better than him being left all alone. Shen Nan asked softly, "Do you want to lie down and rest?" Shen Mingqi shook her head gently and stood where she was obstinately. She struggled to open her eyes and watch the entrance, as though she was waiting for something. She knew that if she were to lie down now, there was a chance she wouldn't get up again. The night darkened gradually. Finally, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance. Green robes, black hair and a set of elegant features. That person had once accompanied her through countless warm and happy times. Now, he had returned to send her off for her final journey. Shen Mingqi said softly, "Take me there." After a long silence, Su Zimo replied, "All right." Waving his robes, he brought along Shen Mingqi who was not far away and soared into the skies, disappearing into the night above the skies of Pingyang town. Before long, the two of them descended in a small valley. Spring was blossoming right now and all life was flourishing. Against the hazy night skies, sprouts and leaves could be seen swaying gently. There was even the sound of spring water trickling peacefully in the valley. Such a scenery was nothing much in the cultivation world. Major sects would typically look for places with rich spirit qi to set up their bases, such as places flourishing with flora, places with vast clouds and skies, places with towering waterfalls, places with billowing smoke or places with rainbows. Those were places that mortals could not reach. There was naturally no way this valley could compare to the beauty of those. However, it had an advantage in how realistic it was with gentle breezes, the chirps of birds and insects as well as the trickling sounds of water. In the clamor of the mortal world filled with strife, this was considered as a rare paradise that was serene and beautiful. The two of them discovered this place by accident when they were young and regarded as a paradise hidden from the world. This was a place that belonged to the two of them and they never discussed it with anyone else. Apart from the time when Su Zimo went to study, this was the place where both of them visited the most. They spent countless nights lying side by side on a small peak in the valley, gazing at the skies and the endless stars, dreaming about their future. Shen Mingqi had once said, "If we turn old and die one day, I want to be buried here." Right now, she was here. Su Zimo placed Shen Mingqi on the grass fields in silence with an indifferent expression. However, a hint of a conflicted emotion flickered through his eyes. He no longer had any attachments towards Shenmingqi. The moment she decided to leave 8 years ago, that was the end of their relationship. However, witnessing her meet with such an end, Su Zimo could not help but feel a surge of sympathy and pity in his heart. Shenmingqi was not bad by nature. Otherwise, she wouldn't have helped Su Zimo beg for mercy 8 years ago or remind him to be wary of Zhou Dingyun. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone against perfected being Tsang Lang 8 years after, resulting in her death. She was not suited by nature to survive in the cruel cultivation world. Even if perfected being Tsang Lang did not harm her, she would have met with her demise sooner or later. She was ruined by that immortal fate. Zimo, actually I haven't been living a happy life in the past 8 years of cultivation. I've had enough of the conniving cultivation world and its cruelty and coldness. Shenmingqi laid beside Su Zimo's legs and gazed at the stars above, murmuring softly with a dazed expression. I've often thought about how great the past was, carefree without worries. Even if I was merely accompanying you and watching you study in silence. We were together every day and made so many wishes. As she talked about the wishes, Shenmingqi smiled unknowingly and her eyes flickered with light. However, those lights dimmed before long. But, later on, Shenmingqi's voice got softer as she continued. Su Zimo listened silently the entire time. As daybreak approached, the stars in the skies disappeared bit by bit. Those stars are so beautiful. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see them again. Slowly, Shenmingqi closed her eyes. They never opened again. The power of the spirit lock flower was gone by now. Channeling spirit energy, he swept his sleeves. A human-shaped grave appeared on the ground, and although mud and dust flew everywhere, none of it touched Shenmingqi. Su Zimo placed Shenmingqi into the grave. Just as he was about to fill the grave back with mud, he paused. His face was slightly lowered and his gaze was calm. He did not move at all, remaining silent. He stood there quietly. A long time later, a ray of sunlight purged away the remnant darkness of the night. Within the grave, Shenmingqi was like a young girl in a peaceful deep sleep. She seemed like she was one with the valley. Under the ray of sunlight, 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of the girl's eyes. The tears were clear and transparent, reflecting a figure in green robes. The tears fell along with the figure they reflected, buried together with this young girl in this valley for all eternity. Finally, Su Zimo took a deep breath and waved his sleeves, burying the grave. He turned around. Not far away, Shen Nan stood with tears streaming down his face, bearing a look of misery. From this day forth, he no longer had any kin in this world. Initially, Shen Nan's heart was filled with fear towards Su Zimo. At that moment, he had lost all sense of reasoning as he yelled at Su Zimo, "What did she do wrongly? What reason was there for her to reject the opportunity of an immortal ascension presented to her? Who could reject it? Why did things end up as such? Why?" Shen Nan bawled and screamed from the depths of his heart in a frenzied manner. At that moment, he even wished that Su Zimo could kill him so that he wouldn't have to endure such misery anymore. Walking towards the outside of the valley, Su Zimo paused for a brief moment when he passed by Shen Nan and said softly, "She wasn't wrong. It was fate that was wrong." Shen Nan froze for a moment before stumbling to sit down weakly. Su Zimo left and disappeared before long. Upon returning to Pingyang town, Su Zimo walked along the long street and looked at his familiar surroundings. Suddenly, a surge of emotions gushed through his heart. Everything began here. Because of an immortal fate, Su Zimo, Shenmingqi and perfected being Tsang Lang's fates were changed. 8 years later, everything ended here. It was as though everything was predestined. It was until now that Su Zimo was certain that he had truly let go of Shenmingqi and the past. He had no resentment, hatred, sadness, or joy. The past between the both of them was buried within that valley. All the grievances of the past had been stuck in Su Zimo's mind like a rock and settled down for 8 years. Now, everything was finally gone completely, crushed into dust. In a single night, he severed his fate from the past and ended his karma, attaining clarity in his mind. The spirit sea within his dantian surged and formed massive waves. Su Zimo could sense that the opportunity for him to enter the Golden Core realm had arrived. Chapter 506, Forming the Golden Core. Chapter 506, Forming the Golden Core. Su Zimo put away the storage bags of Liangheng and the others. Although Tsang Lang and the others were golden cores before their death, they were now dead and their bodies were weak. Conjuring a demon fire from his fingertip, Su Zimo burned all 5 corpses into ashes in the blink of an eye, leaving no trace behind. After settling that, Su Zimo returned to his residence. He wanted to make his breakthrough in this courtyard. Opportunities were required for breakthroughs of major cultivation realms. It was a mysterious feeling in one's mental state, similar to adrenaline rush. At that moment, if Su Zimo were to take a long journey back to Ethereal Peak, he could very likely lose out on the timing of that precious opportunity. Furthermore, he truly could not think of a more meaningful place than here to conduct his breakthrough. 8 years ago, in this unseemly courtyard, beneath that peach blossom tree that was blossoming right now, Su Zimo cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and comprehended the Tao overnight, entering the path of cultivation. In his heart, this place was more meaningful than any paradise out there. Forming a core was no small feat and one must not be disturbed at all. Not daring to be careless, Su Zimo started setting up a formation. Without resting at all, he set up multiple formations around his residence. Not only were there support formations, there were even illusion, trap and killing formations. One after another, the formations were interlinked. 3 days later, the formations were fully set up. Activate! Su Zimo shouted softly and a bedazzling luminescence lit up around the vicinity of the residence as countless mysterious formation patterns surfaced. An illusion formation was set up at the outermost perimeter. It created an illusory residence that seemed no different from before on the outside and would not attract any attention. However, in reality, there were runes concentrated within the illusion formation that shone bright as day within. Arriving beneath the peach blossom tree, Su Zimo assumed a lotus position and closed his eyes to rest. He had worked tirelessly for the past 3 days to set up such a huge formation and had expended a lot of energy as well. Su Zimo had to adjust himself to his best condition. A long time later, he gradually stabilized and slapped his storage bag, causing millions of superior-grade spirit stones to spill out and form small mountains. Thanks to the Mo's Spirit Weapon Workshop, Su Zimo had managed to earn a large amount of spirit stones in the capital of Great Zhou and they sufficed for him to attempt core formation. Boom! Massive waves surged within his Dantian spirit sea. Divine light shone everywhere as his spirit chi surged into the air. Through the mounds of spirit stones, endless spirit chi entered Su Zimo's body continuously. 9 spirit meridians appeared and flickered, akin to 9 long rivers that surged relentlessly before converging into his Dantian spirit sea. The spirit sea was akin to a bottomless pit, sucking the incoming spirit energy relentlessly and forming a gigantic vortex with a terrifying might that spun and shrank non-stop. Core formation was the most important divergent point in one's cultivation path. Be it immortality or demonic cultivation, they had to cross this gap. From chi condensation to foundation establishment and finally to golden core, cultivators undergo the process of training their chi, liquefying it and eventually condensing it into a core. From gas to liquid and finally solid, every single transformation was a leap in quality. From that, it could be seen that the foundation of the golden core was still spirit chi. However, it was merely built from a continuous and gradual transformation. Almost all the cultivators understood what the process was like. It was a never-ending process of extraction, condensation and compression. Along with time, one could turn the initial spirit chi into a solid golden core and complete the transformation. However, throughout history, there were many cultivators and yet, less than 1 in 10,000 are able to form a core. What was the reason for that? Why were there still people failing despite the ease and clarity of the entire process? It was a simple logic to understand. The rise in quality of spirit qi along with one's cultivation would naturally lead to an increase in strength. However, why was one's lifespan extended for hundreds of years after a core was formed? In reality, the reason for that was the true secret behind core formation: to understand life. If one wanted to form a core, they had to understand the true meaning behind the Tao of a core. That was the only way for them to break free from the constraints of heaven and earth and extend their lifespans. The reason for the extension in lifespan was because of a new level of deep understanding. The wisdom that Buddhists often speak of refers to the comprehension of the Tao and enlightenment, allowing one to transcend life and death, turning into a saintly being. It was a sort of comprehension at a new level and referred to supreme wisdom. What was the truth behind the golden core? There were two sides to everything. It was the same for life. A still rock wasn't alive and neither was a running river. The most primal and natural state of life was only manifested through a combination of stillness and movement. The existence of life was activity. Motions are a way of representing life, while stillness was a method for nourishing life. In truth, the formation of a golden core was a process born out of nothing by instilling stillness into motion. To begin with, spirit qi did not exist within one's body. However, after years of cultivation for a strain of spirit qi to appear, it could then gradually grow stronger and turn into a liquid form which could course through the 8 meridians with firm strength. Eventually, it would flow into the sea and return to the dantian, forming a silent and still golden core. Things would happen naturally and logically. At that moment, life would undergo an unprecedented change in quality. By interweaving motion and stillness to condense a golden core and nourish life, one's lifespan could be extended. To begin with, life was something that was produced out of nothing. Eventually, it would enter an eternal slumber after its vibrancy. Producing something out of nothing, entering stillness after motion, that was an interpretation of life. In truth, the formation of a core was the understanding of one of life's obscurities and as such, gaining an extension in lifespan. That was the true meaning of core formation. Once one creates a golden core, one's lifespan will not be decided by nature. That was the most famous mantra of core formation and also hinted at its true essence. For foundation establishment cultivators, the chances of them condensing a golden core was more than 80% as long as they unlocked 5 spirit meridians. Even so, there were still people who failed. They did not fail in core formation, but in the comprehension of the true meaning behind core formation. Throughout history, generations and generations of seniors and predecessors passed down their personal experiences of breaking through to the golden core realm. However, Tao was something that was incorporeal. It couldn't be explained clearly, touched or seen. Even if one knew what was going on, it was useless. The only way for them to transcend mortality and break out of their mold was through personal comprehension. As time passed by, Su Zimo's aura turned increasingly terrifying as his black hair swayed gently without any wind. His lifespan was extending endlessly. 200 years. 300 years. 500 years. Su Zimo's understanding of core formation had not only affected himself, subconsciously, another life in the courtyard was affected. Behind him, the peach blossom tree was shrouded by an invisible Tao, and it grew. Its trunk grew thicker and its branches extended. One after another, pink buds blossomed in the blink of an eye. The petals scattered around Su Zimo's vicinity. Instantly, the petals that scattered grew into new flowers and the entire process was mysterious, akin to a dream. The peach blossom tree swayed gently. If Su Zimo were to open his eyes right now, he would be able to sense that the peach blossom tree was exuding an emotion of joy. It had gained sentience. Chapter 507, Golden Core Completed. Chapter 507, Golden Core Completed. Waves raged fiercely within the spirit sea of the Dantian, shining with a divine radiance. The two starkly different Taos of immortals and fiends were in constant conflict within the Dantian. Fire and water, two starkly different energies, were clashing within the Dantian as well. The situation that Su Zimo was in right now was rather unique. He managed the first step of understanding the true essence of core formation and extended his lifespan. However, due to the fact that there were two starkly different energies clashing, his golden core was yet to be formed. A situation as such was rarely seen throughout history, and one would have to undergo immense danger. If anything untoward happened during the clash of the two different energies, his Dantian would rupture on the spot and his foundation would be entirely destroyed. Right now, fire and water was interweaving constantly within his body. These two forces were irreconcilable. With every clash, there would be a violent jerk in the Dantian, letting out a jarring sound. At the same time, an extremely terrifying force would surge through all his limbs and organs. For normal cultivators, the impact of those forces were destructive. If they were in this position, their bones and tendons would have snapped while their organs would have exploded along with their bodies into blood mists. However, of all things, Su Zimo was someone who did both immortality and demonic cultivation. Furthermore, his demonic cultivation technique was a supreme demon classic that could change the world and creation, forging a body that was terrifying beyond anything else. His body was akin to a relentless utensil that could undergo all setbacks. He was unyielding as the forces of fire and water clashed against him. As time passed by, spirit chi entered his body endlessly. Coupled with the fact that he was at the legendary Extreme Foundation Establishment realm, the two different energies climbed relentlessly. At the same time, the clash between the two energies was getting more intense as well. Bang! 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 Loud bangs were even echoing from within Su Zimo's body. Later on, with every single clash, Su Zimo's body would jerk and he would frown with a look of pain. At that moment, the most rational thing to do for him was to stop in his core formation attempt. However, Su Zimo's expression was resolute and he wasn't swayed at all. He believed in his determination. If he could calm the monkey mind, control the prancing horse and subdue dragons and tigers, why wouldn't he be able to subdue the Tao of fire and water as well? He also believed in Dai Yu and the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. He was convinced that his body would be able to endure the impacts. Boom! Boom! Time slowly passed. The frequency of the clash between the two energies subsided. However, each clash was now scarier with accumulated force and the impact was even more terrifying. Poof! One after another, terrifying bloodied scars appeared on Su Zimo's body and face. His flesh was split open and there was a mist of blood around him. It was painful. Every single inch of meat was in tremendous pain and struck at his nerves. The impact was something that came from within. First, it collided within the Dantian. Next, it burst forth and rippled through his organs, meridians, tendons, bones and flesh. Almost instantly, Su Zimo broke out in cold sweat. As if it could sense his pain, the peach blossom tree behind him swayed gently and a pink glow wafted down, akin to moonlight falling in a gentle manner. The light fell and dissipated into spots, dancing in the air like spirits before surging into Su Zimo's injuries with vibrant life force. To be honest, the power of those light spots was not strong. However, that was the only thing the peach blossom tree could do. When the two energies within his Dantian rested for a moment, the terror of Su Zimo's body was displayed once more. With a boom, his blood chi surged and roared like tsunamis, washing across his wounds. His inner core churned maniacally and demonic chi spread. A tremendous self-regeneration power repaired his organs and connected his tendons, bones and meridians. After they were torn, they regenerated and turned the energy in his organs purer, made his tendons more flexible and his bones even stronger like weapons. His body was undergoing yet another baptism. Su Zimo's 9 spirit meridians were expanding as well. Initially, the spirit energy in his spirit meridians could only be compared to the current flow of a stream. However, his expanded spirit meridians became broader and his spirit energy gushed even fiercer, comparative to massive rivers surging into the sea. Boom! Just as his internal injuries were recovering, the two different energies clashed once more and produced a resounding bang. Su Zimo's body shuddered. It was a type of pain that struck his bones and almost caused him to faint. Su Zimo knew that there was no way out for him. If he were to retreat at this moment, he would suffer even greater difficulties and pain in the future for his next attempt at core formation. No one could break Su Zimo's determination. His spirit sea condensed continuously, shrinking, transforming and ascending. An illusory phantom of a golden core appeared faintly. Endless spirit energy surged towards that illusory golden core, allowing it to turn corporeal and firmer. The demon inner core was condensed in Su Zimo's chest. On the other hand, the immortal golden core swiveled an inch beneath his navel and his dantian, shining with a golden glow in its spherical shape. Against that bedazzling golden shade, Su Zimo's organs, blood, flesh, bones, marrow and meridians shone with an illuminating transparency. Su Zimo sat beneath the peach blossom tree with a transparent and flawless body, emanating the aura of an ethereal immortal. He was like a peerless immortal king that had descended, looking down on the world and shocking the masses. By stepping into the golden core realm, breaking free of the restraints of heaven and earth and extending one's lifespan, there would also be a change in one's demeanor as they transcend mortality. Su Zimo now truly possessed an air of immortality. His expression calmed down gradually. At this point of his breakthrough, he had already crossed over the most dangerous and arduous stage. What was left was for him to materialize the illusory golden core before stabilizing it. The peach blossom tree swayed and petals fell with a hint of joy as well. An unknown period of time passed. Su Zimo shuddered and a golden core was formed in his dantian. It was indestructible and pure, radiating with an immense luster. An extremely terrifying aura emanated from within Su Zimo's body, as though a gigantic ancient true dragon was awakening. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's eyes were initially shut. However, he suddenly felt his vision blur and witnessed a shocking scene. Dark clouds were overcast and lightning flashed as thunder rumbled. The skies collapsed and formed a series of tears. An apocalyptic firestorm rained down and all living beings were crying miserably. In the face of this energy that could destroy all life, Su Zimo's expression was pale and he felt that he was pathetically insignificant. Even nascent souls and void reversions would be met with death, let alone golden cores. Bang! Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, heaven and earth rumbled. An incomparably massive ancient demon descended with a terrifying aura and 4 legs that were akin to heavenly piercing pillars. Standing in the middle of a dark, deep sea, it did not move and suppressed the raging tides. Its tough armor carried the broken firmament and blanketed the world, blocking the massive void currents while protecting all living beings. It was a turtle-shaped demon beast. Su Zimo had never seen such a gargantuan beast. Filled with a vicissitude aura, it seemed like it had crossed through the sands of time from the ancient eras and appeared in the world. Mysterious patterns were etched on its shell, forming obscure runes that seemed as though they could understand the world and the secrets behind the origin of the universe. Focusing his gaze, Su Zimo realized that his eyes stung with an incomparably sharp pain and instantly, 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks and he spun in dizziness. Startled, Su Zimo shut his eyes hurriedly. Chapter 508, Double Phenomenon. Chapter 508, Double Phenomenon. Against the flashing lightning and roaring thunder, the turtle carried the broken heavens and calmed the raging tides with all 4 legs, protecting all living beings. Raising its head, it roared into the skies and divine light burst forth from its eyes in an unstoppable momentum. At that moment, the divine turtle was the only godly being in the entire world. Although Su Zimo's eyes were shut, that scene was etched deeply into his mind unforgettably. This is my golden core phenomenon. Secretly delighted, Su Zimo closed his eyes and recalled the phenomenon he had witnessed in his mind. He did not know the origin of his golden core phenomenon or what its name was. Perhaps, it might even be an unprecedented golden core phenomenon. However, Su Zimo knew that the golden core phenomenon was extremely powerful. At the very least, he had never come across another golden core phenomenon as dazzling as such. Prior to this, in the battle at the Shin family, a golden core released his heavenly essence swords and it was already strong enough to be able to wound Su Zimo's body. However, compared to the golden core phenomenon Su Zimo had just comprehended, that was far inferior. In his estimations, even 10 heavenly essence swords wouldn't be able to deal with his golden core phenomenon. As Su Zimo was comprehending his golden core phenomenon, his eyes blurred once more and the divine turtle from earlier on disappeared. The next moment, Su Zimo was stunned. It was as though he had traveled back in time and instantly, the environment changed. Previously, the heavens were shattered. This time round, the earth had caved in and blood flowed everywhere. Heavens collapsing and the ground sinking in were catastrophes of the legends. When they surfaced in Su Zimo's vision, it shook his mind and felt extremely realistic as though he was right in the midst of it. The ground caved continuously, opening up bottomless ravines one after another. A baleful aura surged forth. The mountains were tumbling and the ground was disintegrating. Lava surged forth endlessly with a scorching heat, flowing rampantly on the vast lands and burning everything in sight. Countless living beings were turned into ashes. Experiencing the apocalyptic tragedy brought forth by the terrifying power of this catastrophe, Su Zimo felt his mind shake and he could not steady himself. What is this? Su Zimo was dumbfounded. Logically speaking, he had already cultivated a golden core phenomenon. Why was another phenomenon appearing before him? Furthermore, it was comparable to the previous phenomenon in terms of power. The miserable cries of the living beings seemed to have woken some sort of a powerful existence. All of a sudden, a massive living being crawled out from the depths of the ground with a terrifying aura. It had the head of a snake and the body of an anaconda. Red in color, it was lined with scales that stacked against one another like flaming red steel plates. That is. Su Zimo's mouth opened slightly. Boom! Before he could react, the living being soared into the air and a massive pair of flaming wings appeared on its gigantic back. What sort of a monster was that? The head of a snake, body of an anaconda, scales of a dragon, no horns on its head nor legs beneath its feet. It was like an ancient Wyrm with wings. However, the aura of the Wyrm was not inferior compared to true dragons. Ascending above the 9 heavens, the scarlet eyes of the Wyrm scanned the place. When it looked at the endless corpses of the countless living beings buried in the sea of flames, it could not help but bellow. Swoosh! Opening its massive mouth, the Wyrm sucked furiously. All the scorching lava on the ground flowed in reverse into the Wyrm's mouth like rivers entering a sea. It swallowed the lava with large, angry mouthfuls. The scales on the Wyrm turned brighter and redder and the flames on its wings intensified. Countless living beings were saved by the Wyrm single-handedly. Su Zimo took a long time before he could calm down after seeing the scene. Double phenomenons? Could a single person possess 2 different phenomenons? Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo recalled and experienced the 2 different phenomenons, comprehending them deeply. An unknown period of time passed. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes with a lightning gaze. Behind him, a phenomenon with a majestic aura rose. The heavens shattered and void currents flowed everywhere as meteors fell. A divine turtle stood between the world and stabilized the void currents with its limbs while holding up the heavens with its back as it roared into the skies. Immediately after, on the other side, another phenomenon surfaced. The ground caved in and volcanoes erupted, causing lava to surge with countless living beings implicated. A Wyrm surged forth from the ground and descended upon the mortal realm. The 2 phenomenons appeared together behind Su Zimo and emitted a terrifying aura as though they could contain everything. The peach blossom tree was motionless, seemingly scared stiff by the 2 phenomenons. A long time later, Su Zimo let out a deep breath and the divine light in his eyes vanished. Gradually, his aura retracted and gathered within his dantian. The two golden core phenomenons dissipated slowly. Success. Su Zimo was delighted that he had managed to cultivate two golden core phenomenons that were so strong and frightening. However, he had many questions. What were the origins of his phenomenons and what were their names? Or rather, why was he able to conjure two phenomenons? Recalling carefully, Su Zimo thought about information he had read about many ancient remnant beasts and pure-blooded ferocious beasts in the ancient books. However, none of them matched the two demon beasts. Could they be living beings from the primordial era that are now extinct? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. If they were extinct living beings from the primordial era, there would be almost no records of them in the ancient books now. Only some ancient super sects might have retained remnants of information regarding them. Su Zimo did not know much about golden core phenomenons. Perhaps I might only get a better understanding after entering the intermediate ancient battlefield. After all, the intermediate ancient battlefield had the phenomenon ranking. That was a place where all the elites of the Golden Core realm in Tianhuang mainland were gathered. A massacre between geniuses and the clashing of top-tier Golden Core phenomenons, that was a feast that only belonged to the paragons. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Among the four Golden Cores that accompanied perfected being Tsang Lang here, apart from Sima Ji, judging from their sect badges, they did not seem like they came from the great Zhou dynasty. He might be able to seek out some useful information from the Golden Core who cultivated the heavenly essence swords. Su Zimo took out the person's storage bag and injected spirit energy into it. After a brief check, he withdrew an ancient book from it. There were 4 words written on it: Golden Core Phenomenon Ranking. The intermediate ancient battlefield would open up once every 100 years. This meant that the phenomenon ranking would refresh once every 100 years. Throughout history, there have been countless Golden Cores who left their names on the phenomenon ranking and it was refreshed constantly. However, there were not many changes to the top 108 Golden Core phenomenons. All in all, only those slightly more than 100 Golden Core phenomenons could be considered as the strong ones. Su Zimo opened the ancient book. There were many words scribbled on it. It was clear that someone had recorded them. The words on the first row were the largest and the most striking. Phenomenon ranking number 1. Di'in, Chaos Ocean. The front portion was his name while the back was the Golden Core phenomenon he cultivated. There was even a line of small words after his Golden Core phenomenon describing the origins of it. When Su Zimo caught sight of the first sentence, he was shocked. Chaos Ocean, ancient phenomenon, created by the human emperor. Chapter 509, Turtle Snake Reappearance. Chapter 509, Turtle Snake Reappearance. Su Zimo continued reading. The Chaos Ocean was created by the human emperor using everything he learned after he entered the Extreme Foundation establishment realm and observed the secrets of heaven and earth while pursuing the origins of the universe. It's the top among thousands of phenomenons and is the number 1 across history. Top among thousands of phenomenons and number 1 across history. What an incredible evaluation. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Although he had also cultivated to the Extreme Foundation establishment realm, the Golden Core phenomenon he cultivated did not depend on the number of spirit meridians he had unlocked, but his experiences and his comprehension of his cultivation. There was a high chance that this Golden Core phenomenon ranking was from 100 years ago. Su Zimo did not know what sect or background Di'in was from to be able to comprehend a Golden Core phenomenon created by the human emperor. Any cultivator that could occupy the top spot of the phenomenon ranking was definitely not someone to be messed with. It was clear judging from Yan Beichen's methods. Su Zimo continued reading. Phenomenon ranking number 2. Heartless Yi, Corpse Mountain Blood Sea. When he saw Corpse Mountain Blood Sea, Su Zimo knew that the cultivator was the successor of Azura sect. In that battle at Ethereal Peak, the same phenomenon appeared behind the Azura Yan Beichen and it had a tremendous might. With a single strike, it killed 2 void reversions. Su Zimo continued reading. Corpse Mountain Blood Sea, created by the first Azura of the ancient era. Initially, two different golden core phenomenons, Corpse Mountain and Blood Sea. Although there have been many Fiend heirs in Azura sect, few of them could fuse the two together. Once fused, it possesses terrifying might and can be ranked in the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking. Su Zimo nodded silently. According to Yen Beichen's words, he should have become a number 1 of the phenomenon ranking 1,000 years ago by relying on this Corpse Mountain Blood Sea. Although Chaos Ocean was the number 1 phenomenon throughout history, the ranking on the phenomenon ranking wasn't determined solely on one's phenomenon, but the strength of the cultivator as well. Even for the same golden core phenomenon, the strength displayed by two cultivators releasing it would be worlds apart if they had different levels of comprehension towards it. Phenomenon ranking number 3. Monk Pujian, Green Lantern Ancient Buddha. The appearance of the ancient Buddha accompanied by a green lantern booms loudly in Sanskrit across all directions, incinerating all living beings and suppressing all demons, ghosts and fiends. Cultivated to its peak, it can be considered as a top 10 on the phenomenon ranking. There were a bunch of other golden core phenomenons behind the phenomenon ranking and they were dizzying. Su Zimo was extremely curious as he hadn't heard of them before. Eternal Kingdom, Meandering River Sunset, Glass Divine Light, Underworld, Thousand Swords United, Amplifying Fog, Limitless Hell, Endless River Mountains, Eastern Purple Chi, Seven Floor Pagoda, Buddha's Radiance, Incinerating Embers, Yin Yang Double Fishes. Every single golden core phenomenon had a detailed introduction. Su Zimo continued browsing and could roughly deduce the sects or factions the phenomenons belonged to judging from their names and descriptions. For example, Glass Divine Light should be a golden core phenomenon of Glass Palace. The description displayed high regards for Glass Divine Light, and if it was released at its peak, it could be considered as a top 10 on the phenomenon ranking. Underworld and Limitless Hell should be golden core phenomenons of the Fiend sections. As for Seven Floor Pagoda and Buddha's Radiance, those should be phenomenons of the Buddhist monasteries. Gradually, Su Zimo realized that the phenomenon ranking was mostly occupied by the super sects of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects as well as the various powerful factions of Tianhuang mainland. Of the top 108 spots on the phenomenon rankings, there were only around 60 golden core phenomenons. Most of them were repeated, coming from different cultivators of the same sect. After reading through the phenomenon ranking, Su Zimo did not discover any golden core phenomenon similar to his. Frowning slightly, he felt somewhat dejected. Suddenly, his expression changed. At the end of the phenomenon ranking was another page. When Su Zimo flipped over, he saw that there were also some golden core phenomenons listed on the last page. Those were phenomenons that had appeared once without reappearing or had gone extinct. First row. World Cleansing Green Lotus. Originally a phenomenon of Fahua Monastery, the eternal green lotus glowed brightly and had a terrifying strength that could cleanse all evil in the world. This was something that could be considered as a top 10 on the phenomenon ranking. However, 10,000 years ago, the North region met with a catastrophe and the Great Qian Empire was destroyed along with Fahua Monastery, leading to the loss of the world cleansing green lotus. At that point, Su Zimo was enlightened. So, one of the two great monasteries that was destroyed in that catastrophe 10,000 years ago was Fahua Monastery. Su Zimo shook his head, a little stunned. Now that 10,000 years have passed, how many people could still remember that flourishing empire and monastery? If that was the case for a destroyed super sect, a fallen paragon would probably be lost in the sands of time and be forgotten by everyone after 100 years. As Su Zimo continued reading, he could not help but shudder as his eyes lit up. Primordial Divine Turtle. An amphibious divine being that is lost. Primordial Soaring Serpent. A fire divine being that is lost. Legend has it that in the primordial era, the thousands of races fought one another and all life was in turmoil. Blood was shed everywhere as corpses lined the ground. That massive battle caused the skies to topple and the ground to collapse. Void currents surged everywhere, meteors crashed, the ground caved in while lava spurted everywhere, killing countless lives. Su Zimo was in deep thought at this point. The battle royale of the primordial era was something that he had heard Uncle Liang of Elixir Yang sect mention before. However, he did not know the reason for it. What he knew was that the battle was the reason why only 100 races were left, with thousands of races going extinct. Because of that, the human race gained a respite and managed to rise up. Su Zimo continued reading. Finally, that battle alarmed two divine beasts of the primordial era, the turtle and serpent, to descend at the same time. The divine turtle managed to carry the heavens with its shell and suppress the void currents with its limbs. The soaring serpent rose from beneath the ground. With a snake's head, anaconda's body, dragon scales, phoenix wings, no horns nor legs, and strength comparable to a true dragon, it devoured all the lava and suppressed the volcanoes everywhere. The appearance of the turtle and snake saved all lives. Experts of the human race who witnessed that were moved and created the two phenomenons by comprehending them. Throughout history, there would occasionally be cultivators who managed to comprehend the two golden core phenomenons of the primordial era. However, none of them could display the same might of the past. There were rumors that when the phenomenon ranking was just created, the two golden core phenomenons were listed among the top 10. Upon seeing this, Su Zimo suddenly had an epiphany. He finally understood the meaning behind the two phenomenons. When he was forming his core, his dantian contained the energies of fire and water, which were starkly different. Both of them clashed repeatedly, with neither side willing to relent. As such, the two energies intensified continuously while contesting against one another. Finally, with the risk of Su Zimo's body exploding, the two different energies finally stabilized and reached a balance. At that moment, the energies of fire and water were already at their limits. That was also the reason why Su Zimo managed to witness the two shocking scenes of the primordial era. The divine turtle represented water while the soaring serpent represented fire. The reason why the primordial divine turtle and primordial soaring serpent was not in the previous iteration of the phenomenon ranking wasn't because they weren't strong enough, but because both of them had gone extinct for many years. Smiling gently, Su Zimo felt a sense of pride. No matter the past of the two golden core phenomenons, now that the both of them were in his hands in this generation, he was certain that he would definitely be able to release them to an unparalleled degree. Chapter 510, Arriving at the Ruins. Chapter 510, Arriving at the Ruins. Su Zimo sorted out the storage bags of Tsang Lang and the other four once more. There weren't many noteworthy treasures, only elixirs, spirit stones and some spirit weapons. None of them interested Su Zimo. Right now, what he wanted the most were secret skill manuals regarding the Tao of the core. The Qi Condensation Realm had the Qi Condensation Manual. The Foundation Establishment Realm had the Foundation Establishment Manual. There should be a cultivation technique for the Golden Core Realm as well. Cultivation techniques were extremely important to a cultivator's cultivation speed and rise in strength. For example, as long as one were to cultivate one of Ethereal Peak's 3 secret skills, Ethereal Foundation Establishment, diligently and comprehend it, they would be able to unlock up to 6 spirit meridians. That was something rather impressive before entering the ancient battlefield. With a high-end cultivation technique, a cultivator could have his effort on his Golden Core Realm cultivation. However, Ethereal Peak did not contain any top-tier cultivation techniques for the Tao of the core. After the massive battle at Ethereal Peak, Sect Master Ling Yun mentioned this to Su Zimo. The circumstances of Su Zimo's core formation were rather special as well. The two different energies of fire and water clashed within his dantian. Although he managed to suppress fire and water while subduing the turtle and serpent thanks to his strong determination and terrifying physique, it was still a latent danger. Without the help of a powerful cultivation technique for the Tao of the core, Su Zimo was worried that he would run into trouble in the future. The fact that there weren't any secret cultivation techniques within the storage bags of perfected being Tsang Lang and the others was something Su Zimo expected as well. Storage bags mostly contained consumables such as elixirs and spirit stones or spirit weapons used for killing. Most people would not put their secret cultivation techniques in storage bags. However, from Liang Heng's storage bag, apart from the phenomenon ranking, Su Zimo discovered a messaging spirit crane. The content within stirred his interest. It indicated that there was a dangerous ground known as the Great Xian Ruins. 10,000 years ago, the capital of Great Xian was destroyed overnight and was reduced to ruins with countless living beings implicated in the tragedy. Alongside the capital of Great Xian were two great Buddhist monasteries of the time, Fahua Monastery and Daming Monastery. Many treasures were buried within the ruins. Apart from miraculous elixirs and spirit weapons, there were also lost cultivation techniques. It was said that the number one secret skill of the Tao of the Core, Mystic Dharmic Lotus Sutra, was buried along with Fahua Monastery in the ruins. However, no one managed to find it. Of course, the ruins were not a friendly place and were filled with treacherous dangers. Over the years, there have always been cultivators who took the risk to explore it but failed to return alive. There were even rumors that although the capital of Great Xian was destroyed and reduced to ruins, the Khanate spirit fire that burned it down had not extinguished and was still burning. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo decided to check out the Great Xian ruins. Firstly, there was the obvious lure of the treasures that were buried along with the majestic capital of Great Xian and the two super sects in the ruins. Secondly, if he could find the Mystic Dharmic Lotus Sutra, it would definitely be a great boon for his cultivation. It was different from his demonic cultivation. Although Dai Yu had also left him a Supreme Demon Classic before she left, there were corresponding cultivation sutras right from the body tempering section at the beginning all the way to the Yang spirit section at the end. For his immortality cultivation, Ethereal Peak did not have any top-tier cultivation techniques. While Su Zimo established his firm foundation in Ethereal Peak, his truly powerful immortality techniques were not learned from Ethereal Peak. He learned the ancient Dragonification manual from the Human Emperor's Palace. The Candlelight Sword formation was obtained from Extreme Fire Tao Lord. It was the same for his Sea Calming manual, Tidal manual and Azura Saber. Therefore, Su Zimo decided to take a spin around the Great Xian ruins and see if he could gain any rewards. Thirdly, it was the rumor regarding the spirit fire. If he could meet with Khanate spirit fire, Su Zimo could attempt to repair the mystic gold silk armor in his storage bag. Back in the elementary ancient battlefield, he had even managed to pick up a few black gold arrows that used to be Khanate spirit weapons but had their spirit patterns destroyed. He could try to repair them. Additionally, the third level of the Candlelight Sword formation required 27 swords. If he could refine his flying swords again with a Khanate spirit fire, that would be a great boon to the power of his flying swords. Lastly, it was for his personal cultivation. Right now, Su Zimo was in possession of many cultivation techniques. If he were to merely rely rigidly on seclusion cultivation, it would be hard for him to meet with any progress. The way for him to meet with rapid growth was to be triggered by threats. Take Azura Saber for example. If one didn't kill and turn into an Azura, they won't be able to comprehend the secret of the Azura Saber. Tidying his attire, Su Zimo rose and dispelled the formation surrounding his residence with a wave before pushing the door and exiting. Standing at the entrance, he paused for a moment and turned back. His gaze was cloudy as he watched the petals falling from the peach blossom tree in the courtyard. In the blink of an eye, 8 years had passed. Now that this was completed, he would most likely not return in the near future. A long while later, Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and closed the door before turning to leave. In midair, Su Zimo sped towards the direction of the Great Xian ruins with nothing beneath his feet, experiencing the power and changes brought forth by the Golden Core realm. Apart from his year in the ancient battlefield, Su Zimo had never left the territory of Great Zhou up till this point of his cultivation. On the one hand, he did not have much time. Merely 6 years have passed ever since he joined Ethereal Peak. For him to reach Golden Core realm from Qi condensation within 6 years was a rather terrifying cultivation speed. On the other hand, Su Zimo's cultivation realm was way too low. Foundation establishment cultivators could barely protect themselves within the territory of Great Zhou. If they were to leave, it would be difficult for them to return alive. The Great Xian ruins was not located within the Great Zhou dynasty. Now that Su Zimo had formed a core for both his immortality and demonic cultivation, he was much more confident and ready to explore the great Qian ruins. He traveled for an entire month without sleeping and resting before finally arriving at his destination. On the horizon far away, a rubbled wall emanating an ancient aura came into view. Sweeping his gaze across, the ruins were vast and boundless. One could imagine the territory in the reign of this massive, glorious empire in its heydays. At the very least, it was more than 10 times the current Great Zhou dynasty. When he got closer, Su Zimo focused his gaze. In the middle of the ruins was a frighteningly massive ravine that split the place into two, extending into the horizon far away. Looking down, it seemed as though a gargantuan beast was opening its massive mouth, ready to devour all life. The ravine was deep and dark, giving off a chilling wind. Even with the power of his vision, Su Zimo could not see what was within. Furthermore, he could sense extreme danger coming from the ruins. However, for some unknown reason, Su Zimo felt a familiar aura coming from the depths of the ruins, as though a voice or some sort of a power was calling out to him. Uncanny. He lamented while shaking his head. At the same time, the sound of chains rattling, dull and heavy, could be heard from the depths of the dark, ghastly ravine. A pair of eyes opened up with a ferocious glint. It flickered within that space. In that moment, it seemed as though day and light had just swapped over while yin and yang intersected. In that momentary flash of illumination, an extremely old and withered face could be seen faintly. It was extremely horrifying. The face grinned and let out an ear-piercing laughter. Kakik. The fated person has arrived. Chapter 5:11, Righteousness. Chapter 5:11, Righteousness. Knowing that the Great Qian ruins was not a friendly place, Su Zimo did not dare to be careless and descended slowly at the boundaries. He only headed in after checking out the surroundings. Even a capital as majestic as such was now reduced to rubbles and broken walls, turning into a ruin. As he walked across the mud and debris, Su Zimo was emotional. Be it immortality or demonic cultivation, the reason why most cultivators cultivated was because of the word longevity. However, who could withstand the power of time? In the ancient era, there were multiple emperors and countless mighty figures and patriarchs. But now, all of them were gone, leaving nothing but legends. Su Zimo did not know much about the Great Qian ruins and neither did he dare to advance too quickly. His ears twitched and his gaze intensified as he channeled the technique of universal sight and hearing to sense for activity around him. Along the way, he came across a few cultivators and there were also Qi refinement warriors and foundation establishment cultivators. All of those cultivators were extremely cautious and wary. When they caught sight of Su Zimo, they had cautious expressions and hid far away, deterring around him. In these ruins, apart from the danger present here, it was also extremely common for others to kill for treasures. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. Su Zimo did not receive any rewards from the ruins. He merely found some broken shards of spirit weapons in the debris which he tossed away casually. Naturally, he did not encounter any danger as well. It was late at night right now and the moonlight was pure. The entire place was eerily quiet. Strange. Su Zimo frowned. Ah! Suddenly, a tragic shriek sounded nearby. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. After pondering for a moment, he decided to check it out. If he knew the source of the danger, he could prepare himself for it as well. In a flash, he sped towards the origin of the sound. Not long after, he caught sight of a Qi refinement warrior standing on the spot. His back was facing Su Zimo and although there was a clear life force coming from him, he did not move at all. A few cultivators stood and watched from far away, not daring to close in with fear in their eyes. Coughing gently, Su Zimo asked with a raised voice, "Fellow Daoist?" When the Qi refinement warrior heard Su Zimo's voice, his body moved and he turned around slowly. Su Zimo was petrified when he caught sight of that person's appearance. The person's forehead was dark and his lips were purple. Against the moonlight, his pale face seemed extraordinarily frightening as he let out a sinister smile. When he saw that smile, Su Zimo's hair stood on end. Hee hee hee. A creepy laughter sounded from the person as he grinned before lunging towards Su Zimo with open arms. Su Zimo calmed down before long. He might have been stunned if he had encountered something as such back when he had just stepped foot into the cultivation world. But now, he was already a golden core, and even if he hadn't encountered something as such before, he could roughly guess what was going on. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid the attacking Qi refinement warrior. Reaching out, he slapped the person's forehead gently without exerting any force and shouted softly. "How dare you harm someone, demon? Get out!" Ah! A shriek came from within the Qi refinement warrior's body. A ghost flew out from the top of his head. It was difficult to see as it was illusory and transparent. When it sensed Su Zimo's aura, the ghost was horrified and fled into the distance right away. The Qi refinement warrior's body shuddered and his lips and face regained some color. However, that person was frail and weak, falling down limply as he panted heavily. "Thank you, Senior." The Qi refinement warrior panted while expressing his thanks. "Take a while to recover and leave this place as soon as possible. If you linger longer, you might die." Su Zimo remarked darkly. All right." The Qi refinement warrior nodded hurriedly. The thing that possessed the Qi refinement warrior was a little ghost that did not have much dermic powers. At the most, it could only attach itself to the bodies of mortals and low-level cultivators. This was the possession by ghosts that is widely known in the mortal world. While little ghosts were troublesome, they did not dare to provoke three types of people. The first type was cultivators with strong dermic powers. Most Foundation establishment cultivators would already have no need to fear little ghosts. The second type was people with a strong young blood qi. Be it cultivators or mortals, as long as they were fit, strong and had a robust blood qi, they could defend against most demons and illnesses. Now that Su Zimo was at the tsunami blood realm, his blood qi was akin to a blazing sun even without him channeling it. There was no way a little ghost would dare approach a burning furnace. That was the reason why little ghosts all wanted to avoid Su Zimo along the way, let alone close into him. The third type was people who were filled with righteousness and just. Those who were educated and possessed righteousness. Righteous people could compose themselves in the face of temptations and threats. The reason why some people would never fall ill with their mortal bodies despite being jailed and having to endure those terrible environments was because they possessed righteousness. Predecessors always mentioned that one must not be corrupted by wealth, bend their integrity due to poverty or bow down against power. In reality, that was the realm of righteousness. Mortals often mentioned that one would not fear ghosts if they hadn't done anything guilty. This was also the same logic. As long as one did not commit acts of guilt, their hearts wouldn't weaken out of fear. Those that were righteous were always fearless. Back when he was young, Su Zimo had even heard about some legends when he was studying. For great scholars with immense wisdom and righteousness, in their twilight years, even with their weak mortal bodies, a single shout was enough for them to keep evil at bay. Their shouts could shock the ghosts into dust. 10,000 years ago, millions of lives were killed in this place overnight. As such, the aura of vengefulness was strong and there were many wandering ghosts left around with their grievances. Given the large number of little ghosts, there were bound to be malicious ghosts born from them. Little ghosts were troublesome, but they would not harm one's life. Malicious, ferocious and evil ghosts were those that killed. Even for Foundation establishment cultivators and golden cores, a slight misstep could cause them their lives. Su Zimo continued advancing, and as the night got darker, he entered deeper into the ruins as well. Not long after, a tragic laughter sounded in all directions. It was unpredictable and caused one's hairs to stand on end. Smirking coldly, Su Zimo did not stop and continued forward. Swoosh! An evil gust of wind welcomed him. Su Zimo's black hair swayed gently and his expression was calm. There wasn't a single trace of panic in his eyes. "If you continue forward, I'll take your life." The shrill voice of a woman could be heard from the evil wind. Su Zimo was unmoved. He had just walked a dozen meters ahead when a hazy phantom appeared behind him, dressed in blood-colored robes with long black hair touching the floor. A menacing face could be seen faintly from between the black hair. The malicious ghost reached out with both hands, lunging towards Su Zimo silently with its purplish-black fingernails. Su Zimo seemed oblivious to it. The moment the hands of the malicious ghost touched Su Zimo's body, its expression changed and it shrieked. Su Zimo's bloodline surged and shone with streaks bedazzling lightning. The power of thunder was the most righteous energy in the world and was the greatest counter to evil entities. The malevolent ghost would not have expected that Su Zimo's bloodline would possess the power of thunder. Instantly, it was struck by the thunder and dissipated into ashes, disappearing. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo's footsteps had not stopped at all. Initially, there were other malevolent ghosts surrounding him. When they witnessed that, all of them scattered in unison. Chapter 5:12, Otherworldly Soldiers Crossing. Chapter 5:12, Otherworldly Soldiers Crossing. In the night, Su Zimo continued advancing and was getting nearer to the center of the Great Qian ruins. Although he came across some spirit stones and weapons along the way, they were not valuable and were commonly seen in the markets. The Great Qian ruins existed for 10,000 years and countless people have been here during that period of time. The relatively safe areas at the outer perimeter were most likely ransacked thoroughly long ago. If one wanted benefits, the greatest possibility would be at the depths of the ruins right in the center. Su Zimo guessed that the outer perimeter of the Great Qian ruins was mostly filled with little ghosts that did not have much power. As he ventured deeper, he came across malevolent and evil ghosts. If he were to continue advancing deeper into the center of the ruins, there was a high chance that he would meet with danger that could threaten golden cores. As he looked down at the gigantic ravine that ran through the ruins from midair, Su Zimo felt a sense of trepidation. Before long, he gradually stopped and gazed across, murmuring softly with a look of shock, "Was this the palace back then?" At the front, a series of towering pitch-black walls stood piercing into the clouds majestically. Although it looked obvious that they were old, it also displayed the dominance of this palace back in the past. Even the sight of the debris alone was enough to shock Su Zimo. Against the palace walls, any cultivators would seem like an insignificant ant. If the Azura Yen Beichen had not told Su Zimo about it, he would not have been able to imagine that a capital as huge as this was destroyed by a divine dragon overnight. What a pity for such an empire. Su Zimo lamented internally and entered slowly. The moment he entered the vicinity of the palace, his expression changed and he frowned. He felt a cold chill piercing his body. Given Su Zimo's immensely strong blood qi that could repel evil, the fact that he was able to sense chills meant that this palace was far from simple. What a malevolent energy. Su Zimo thought as he checked out his surroundings. A prolonged stay in this palace would result in malevolent qi entering one's body. Over time, it would result in massive issues within one's body and could even reduce their lifespans. Even with Su Zimo's formidable blood qi, he did not dare to linger too long in this place. Seems like not only did many people die in this palace, their cultivation realms were not low either. Otherwise, such a terrifying malevolent qi wouldn't have been formed. Just as he was about to move forward, his ears suddenly twitched. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he shuffled his footsteps, stealthily dodging to the side and hiding behind a fake mountain without touching the ground with his heels. Ta! 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 Before long, a series of dull footsteps sounded, marching in unison. Gazing over, Su Zimo saw that there was a squadron of more than 1,000 soldiers strolling over from a small path nearby. All of those soldiers were armed and wore ancient armor that was filled with rust. Each of them wore helmets and were expressionless, emanating a frosty aura as though they came straight from hell. Otherworldly soldiers crossing. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Otherworldly soldiers crossing was formed from the lasting misfortune, vengeance, grievance, and malevolence of soldiers that died on the battlefield or troops that met with untimely demise. When the malevolent qi was too strong, it would even materialize into the images of otherworldly troops of the past. In reality, all of these soldiers were already dead. However, their consciousness was stuck in the moment that they were dead as they continued with their missions in an orderly manner. For example, the 1,000-odd soldiers here were tasked to patrol the palace before their death. Even 10,000 after their deaths, the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured maintained their vigilant stance and continued patrolling the palace against enemies. All of a sudden, the otherworldly squad that had initially passed the fake mountain paused and their leader turned around slowly, gazing towards Su Zimo's hiding spot. The leader of the otherworldly squad was not weak and the aura he gave off was similar to an early-stage golden core at least. Furthermore, he had extremely keen senses. Su Zimo had just recognized the otherworldly soldiers crossing and his pores emitted a faint bloodline qi. Instantly, the leader of the squad noticed. Given the icy environment, the slight heat of blood qi could be sensed instantly by the strong otherworldly soldiers. Su Zimo was extremely quick to react as well as he locked his pores, stopped his heart and sealed his blood qi in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he closed his eyes. That way, he would not be noticed by the otherworldly squad leader not far away from the glint in his eyes. Those otherworldly soldiers were not alive after all and did not possess the 5 senses, they merely existed relying on their familiarity with the place as well as their remnant consciousness. The eyes of the otherworldly squad leader shone with a demonic red glint and lingered for a long time at Su Zimo's area. When he didn't notice anything unusual, he turned back and led his squad to continue patrolling. After the otherworldly soldiers left, Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and darted out from behind the fake mountain. Given his current strength, he did not have to fear those otherworldly soldiers. However, if he were to engage in a battle with them, otherworldly soldiers from other parts of the palace would definitely be attracted over by the commotion. A mere patrolling squad had more than 1,000 troops. In that case, an army of this palace would definitely range in the millions. That was a massive number. If those otherworldly soldiers were to charge over endlessly, Su Zimo would be embroiled in a tough battle. If there was any unstoppable existence within the otherworldly soldiers, he would definitely be in danger. However, with his inner core condensed, Su Zimo possessed the power of universal hearing and would dodge any patrolling otherworldly soldiers. For anyone else, this palace was a treacherous place with dangers lurking everywhere. However, it wasn't anything much for Su Zimo. Gradually, he entered the depths of the palace. With so many otherworldly soldiers gathered in this palace preventing ordinary golden cores from entering the depths, there was a high chance that great treasures could be hidden within. As he continued advancing, Su Zimo gradually noticed something amiss. Something seemed to have happened within the palace. There were otherworldly troops converging towards the north endlessly. Thud. 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 The sound of galloping was like thunder as the ground quaked. In Su Zimo's vision, there were even thousands of mounted riders charging towards the north with a furious killing intent and a dark aura. There's other intruders that alerted the otherworldly soldiers. Su Zimo deduced almost instantly. The sound of killing, shouts and horses galloping were mixed over that side. The murderous echoes shook the heavens. Unless they had extraordinary means, they would have to pray to survive against the encirclement of so many otherworldly soldiers. Su Zimo did not have the energy to go save anyone he did not know about. Just as he was about to change directions and head the other way, he exclaimed softly with a startled expression. Not good. His ears twitched for a little and he was alarmed, rushing towards the north without hesitation. Chapter 5:13, Trapped in the Palace. Chapter 5:13, Trapped in the Palace. In the night, within the great Xian Palace, the sounds of killing shook the heavens. The surrounding otherworldly aura was immense and torrential, almost engulfing the entire skies. Xian Yi, let's go. We can't hold out anymore. The person who spoke was a beautiful middle-aged lady drenched in sweet sweat. Talisman runes shone in her hands as she tossed them out, scattering like butterflies, as though she had an endless supply. The beautiful middle-aged lady was the peak master of Ethereal Peak's Talisman Peak, perfected golden core, Lu Hui. Beside Lu Hui, 2 other golden cores released spirit arts and flying swords, fighting against the surrounding otherworldly soldiers. The 2 of them had a few wounds each and looked pale, seemingly unable to hold out any longer. One of them was a Ray Peak's master, Xian Yi. The other person was wearing a set of white robes soaked in blood. Wielding a 3 feet long green sword, he revealed an edged frosty sword Qi and was a sword cultivator. The 3 of them took a spot each in a triangular formation and their feet shuffled continuously, looking out for one another. However, there were simply way too many otherworldly soldiers that charged from all directions, as though they were endless. Wave after wave, they lunged forward and attacked Xian Yi and the other 2 repeatedly. The 3 of them were on the verge of dying. Gritting his teeth with an indignant expression, Xian Yi could only remark darkly, "Retreat. It's probably not going to be easy for us to retreat now." The white-robed sword cultivator said softly with a terrible expression. The 3 of them caused quite a commotion and otherworldly soldiers rushed over from other parts of the palace continuously. The otherworldly soldiers that came later on were extremely strong. Initially, the patrolling otherworldly soldiers were only at the strength level of early and mid-stage golden cores. But now, there were late-stage golden core otherworldly soldiers joining the fray. The situation was turning deadlier. The 3 of them retreated endlessly but were trapped by endless otherworldly soldiers. As though they were stuck in a swamp and had difficulty moving, their speeds became slower and slower. The longer things dragged on, the worse the situation would be for them. All 3 of them were injured. Although they were consuming elixirs repeatedly, given the fact that they were in an environment filled with malevolent qi, their injuries could not heal up and bled continuously. Furthermore, the malevolent qi entered their bodies through their wounds and over time, the damage to their meridians, dantian and bloodline would intensify and turn progressively worse. In the end, even if the 3 of them were not killed by the charging otherworldly soldiers, they would have their meridians and core frozen by the malevolent qi and die with their daos dissolved. Moreover, among the 3 of them, Lu Hui was already in a terrible condition. Her lips were purplish and her footsteps were sluggish. Her spirit energy was thoroughly expended and her golden core was shrouded by malevolent qi, about to fall at any moment with difficulty circulating. Although their triangular formation was great, it wouldn't be able to function if one of them was down. At that time, the circumstances would be even worse for the 3 of them. Flashes of blood appeared. Lu Hui grunted and a nasty gash appeared on her abdomen as blood flowed endlessly. Xian Yi's expression changed starkly and he took a step forward, supporting Lu Hui who was about to fall. Waving his robes, he let out a tremendous amount of spirit energy that knocked back the incoming otherworldly soldiers, pushing them back like dominoes. "Ziyue, break out of the encirclement with all your might. I'll cover the back." When he saw the wound on Lu Hui, Xian Yi frowned and a hint of frenzy could be seen in his eyes. Slapping his storage bag, Xian Yi took out a couple elixirs and devoured them in a single mouthful. At the same time, he summoned 12 supreme-grade flying swords. Clang! Clang! The swords quivered and buzzed endlessly. Hexagonal sword formation. Xian Yi's golden core channeled to its limits and was already throbbing in pain. Controlling the 12 flying swords, he conjured 2 hexagonal sword formations and blocked the otherworldly soldiers that were coming from behind him. 2 hexagonal sword formations appeared in midair and shone brightly with a bedazzling radiance. Bang! 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 More than 10 otherworldly soldiers lunged over. When they struck the hexagonal sword formations, they turned into ashes and dissipated in the air. Xian Yi did not have a golden core phenomenon. However, he was a sword formation master. With his hexagonal sword formations, he was strong enough to fight against some golden core phenomenons. Up ahead, The white-robed sword cultivator took a deep breath of air and swallowed a few spirit regeneration elixirs. Letting out a long roar, the sword in his hands quivered as he shouted, "Golden core phenomenon, ethereal sword rain." Pitter-patter. Pitter-patter. Raindrops fell endlessly. A rain descended behind the white-robed sword cultivator and it poured heavier and denser, shining with an endless gleam of sharpness. Poof. 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 Many of the otherworldly soldiers at the front fell to the ground one after another after being pierced by the sword rain, turning into malevolent chi before dissipating. At the very least, a few hundred otherworldly soldiers vanished with the release of the golden core phenomenon. Up ahead, a vast empty space came into sight. "Let's go." The white-robed cultivator bellowed and charged first with his sword, paving the way forward. Xian Yi carried Lu Hui with his arms and followed close behind. They did not get far when the sound of galloping could be heard behind, rumbling like thunder. Even the ground started quaking uncontrollably, as though thousands of troops were charging over. "Watch out." The white-robed cultivator's expression changed. The otherworldly soldiers at the front seemed to have received some sort of an order as they scattered in unison. A large number of troops wielding spears and riding otherworldly horses formed an all-shaped formation, charging over murderously to clash against the white-robed cultivator's golden core phenomenon. Boom! There was a deafening sound. A few riders at the front fell off their mounts. However, the ethereal sword rain phenomenon also showed signs of falling. Another clash would be sufficient to dispel the white-robed sword cultivator's golden core phenomenon. "Xian Yi, Ziyue, just leave. Don't bother about me." Lu Hui's expression was grim and her meridians, bloodline and body were freezing up after being sealed by the malevolent qi. She was extremely weak and no longer had the strength to fight. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Xian Yi had cultivated for more than 300 years and had a warm personality, rarely getting emotional. But now, he was agitated and his eyes were reddened as he shouted. "Sigh, I'll only be a burden to you guys if you take me along. At that time, none of us will survive." Lying in Xian Yi's embrace, a tender look flashed through Lu Hui's eyes as she whispered, "Xian Yi, I know how you feel about me. I'm afraid, we won't have that affinity in this lifetime." When he heard that, Xian Yi turned calm instead. "Lu Hui, since you know how I feel, you should know that I definitely won't leave you." Xian Yi's gaze was resolute as he held Lu Hui's ice-cold hands, not willing to let go as he laughed. "I've been a coward towards relationships for my entire life. Today, I'm finally brave." Turning around, Xian Yi nodded to the white-robed sword cultivator and said calmly, "Ziyue, leave first. I'll accompany her." By accompanying her, it meant that he was going to die with her. "Fellow Taoists, you guys." The white-robed cultivator looked anxious and did not continue speaking. Xian Yi smiled gently. "The path of cultivation is limitless without any end in sight. Even if we truly attain longevity and end up dying old in loneliness, what's the point of that? This is fine. Lu Hui and I will take this opportunity to head down and accompany our old bro, Wen Xian, lest he gets bored below." Haha. Xian Yi laughed once more as he hugged the woman in his embrace tightly. At that moment, it seemed as though the two of them were the only ones left in the world. It wasn't everyone who could embrace death with such an open mind. Boom! At that moment, another bang sounded. The white-robed sword cultivator's golden core phenomenon was shattered by the otherworldly soldiers. Without any protection, the three of them were completely exposed against the dense otherworldly troops. Chapter 5:14, Breaking Free. Chapter 5:14, Breaking Free. Instant thunder. Suddenly, a voice sounded. It wasn't exactly clear given the commotion of the battlefield. However, right after, the tides of the battlefield shifted. Snap! An incomparably dazzling thunderbolt tore through the dark clouds and descended among the otherworldly troops. Electric snakes slithered around in a blinding manner, turning the entire place into a sea of lightning. Crackle. There was a deafening and crisp sound. At least 1,000 otherworldly soldiers were devoured by the sea of lightning and turned into dust. The sheer number of strong otherworldly troops at this part of the palace was not the only reason why it was so dangerous. More than that, it was because the troops were created from malevolent chi. Even if the cultivators were beaten down, they would only turn into malevolent chi again. All it took was a period of time for the defeated otherworldly troops to spawn again. Their numbers would not diminish and could even be said to be endless. However, malevolent chi feared thunder. The thunder earlier smited thousands of otherworldly soldiers into dust, and their malevolent chi was purged as well. They could not respawn anymore. An expert came for us? The eyes of the white-robed sword cultivator lit up as he turned around and urged, Xian Yi, an expert is here. Take Lu Hui with you and we'll try again to kill our way out of this. That noise from earlier? Xian Yi furrowed his brows with a confused expression. It seems to be that lad, Zimo. Lu Hui commented weakly. Before her sentence was completed, the sound of clothes fluttering arrived. It came at an extremely fast speed and arrived before them almost instantly. A green figure stood in midair with swaying black hair. His eyes were deep and sparkled like stars as he gave off a terrifying aura. Zimo, it's truly you. Xian Yi exclaimed. The person who arrived was Su Zimo, who had barged into the palace as well. Shoo! 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 Not far away, rows of archers knelt on the ground and shot out long arrows lined with malevolent chi. A flurry of them arrived instantly, like a swarm of locusts. Watch out! Xian Yi exclaimed. He was clear about the strength of those otherworldly soldiers. In this palace, the otherworldly soldiers that were spawned were almost representative of the massive, unstoppable army that guarded the palace in the great Qian capital of the past. There were many different types of soldiers and they were powerful. Apart from patrolling troops, there were archers as well as light and heavy armored mounted riders. Furthermore, all of them were golden cores. If armies of golden cores could range in the millions, it would mean that golden cores were everywhere and nascent souls were plenty as well. The might of the great Qian Empire could be seen from that fact alone. The malevolent arrows that were fired were extremely swift, but Su Zimo was faster. He did not bother to deal with the malevolent arrows at all as he descended quickly. All of the malevolent arrows missed. It was a deafening crush. Su Zimo was like a human-sized ferocious beast, causing the ground to shudder as he descended before Xian Yi and the other two. Follow me. The situation was dire and the otherworldly soldiers were charging once more. Whipping out blood quencher from his storage bag, Su Zimo did not waste time on needless words as he led the way and paved a path. Zimo, watch out. Those otherworldly soldiers are not easy to deal with. Xian Yi reminded hurriedly. Naturally, he could tell that Su Zimo had already formed a core. However, the strength of those otherworldly soldiers were increasingly powerful and could even destroy the golden core phenomenon of the white-robed sword cultivator. Even at late-stage golden core realm, the three of them ended in such a helpless situation. Su Zimo had just cultivated to early-stage golden core realm. Despite his amazing potential and strong trump cards, if he was encircled by the otherworldly soldiers, he might have to die in regret here as well. Clang! Blood quencher quivered and let out a blood beam. Circulating his bloodline, Su Zimo slashed out and the blood beam expanded with lightning crackling on it in a terrifying manner. Bang! 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 The light-armored mounted riders that charged over from the front were swept over by Su Zimo domineeringly and dissipated instantly. They were completely helpless. The otherworldly soldiers that could destroy the white-robed cultivator's golden core phenomenon could not withstand the sharpness of Su Zimo's blade. What a strong blood chi! Impressive. The white-robed sword cultivator was secretly in awe. Please follow closely behind me. Su Zimo continued advancing with blood quencher and his speed wasn't affected at all. he displayed an extremely terrifying saber technique with his hands. Phantoms appeared everywhere as blood chi spread out. The killing intent of the saber technique was immense, and every single strike was fatal, aiming for one's life. Coupled with blood quencher, everywhere the blood beam touched, people and mounts would fall. No one could stop Su Zimo for a moment. That saber technique was none other than Azura saber, imparted to him by the Azura, Yen Beichen. Although Su Zimo practiced it in private after the battle at Ethereal Peak, it was against thin air and he could not feel the excitement of a massacre and a massive battle. At the same time, he could not truly comprehend the intent of Azura saber. But now, with the help of the surrounding otherworldly soldiers, Su Zimo was practicing his technique while breaking free from the encirclement. Ghosts howling, blood flow, hell, white bones, phantom, corpse. Every single attack felt increasingly familiar. Su Zimo carefully experienced the intent of his attacks and felt the changes of the saber technique. Fellow Daoist, the direction isn't right. A short while later, the white-robed sword cultivator frowned and said deeply, "We're now headed towards the depths of the palace. We're getting further away from the outer perimeter." Su Zimo replied, "The commotion caused here was too great and there are at least millions of troops waiting outside. It's not too realistic if we want to kill our way out." In reality, given his strength, it wasn't considered difficult if he wanted to kill his way out. If Su Zimo could kill his way in, he could naturally do the same in reverse. But now that he was with the group of three and Lu Hui was severely injured, that made things difficult. With a calm expression, Su Zimo analyzed, if those otherworldly soldiers retained their memories from 10,000 years ago, there must exist places within the palace that they're not permitted to enter casually. Once we enter, we'll find those places and that will ensure our safety temporarily. Xianyi nodded and hugged Lu Hui while summoning sword formations, defending against the incoming otherworldly soldiers. "Let's listen to Zimo." Thud. 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 Before long, a deafening sound of horses galloping sounded in a shuddering manner. Instantly, the debris and rocks in the ruins started bouncing. The sound came from the front and back. Xianyi and the others narrowed their gazes and looked. The otherworldly soldiers that chased them from behind dispersed and a dark cloud shrouded over with a terrifying malevolent aura. It was dull, heavy and suffocating. That dark cloud gradually condensed into a series of mounted riders. Wielding long spears, the mounted riders had short spears hanging from their backs and they wore a tight, ancient armor all over. The only things that were exposed were a pair of grisly bloodshot eyes. Heavy armored mounted riders. The white-robed sword cultivator's expression turned terrible. Earlier on, the light-armored mounted riders condensed by the malevolent chi could already shatter his golden core phenomenon with ease. If these heavy-armored mounted riders were to charge over, their iron hooves would be able to drown them in an instant, killing them without a corpse remaining. It was the same in front of them. Millions of heavy-armored mounted riders rushed over with a torrential momentum. "Don't be afraid, I'll settle them." Su Zimo's voice sounded once more, calm and composed without any emotions. For some reason, when he heard that voice, the uneasy heart of the white-robed sword cultivator calmed down instantly. Chapter 515, Palace Forbidden Grounds. Chapter 515, Palace Forbidden Grounds. Kill. A leader of the mounted soldiers raised his long spear and growled from the depths of his throat with a bloody glint in his eyes. Kill. 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 The remaining millions of heavy-armored mounted riders chanted with a mighty aura while withdrawing the short spears on their backs at the same time, throwing them towards Su Zimo and the other three with their full strength in unison. Buzz. Buzz. Millions of short spears that gleamed coldly tore through the air and let out an ear-piercing sound. This was equivalent to millions of golden cores attacking at the same time, and the force of it was much stronger than the arrows. Dense and clumped, they covered the skies and almost drowned Su Zimo and the other three. The white-robed sword cultivator had cultivated for more than 100 years and had been through countless life and death experiences. Yet, he still felt his heart palpitate at this scene and could not contain himself properly. I guess only nascent souls can survive against such an attack. A thought flashed through the white-robed sword cultivator's mind. Ring. 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 At the same time, a clear sword buzzing sound reverberated through the world, tearing through metal and rock with an endless sharpness. The white-robed sword cultivator was extremely familiar with such a sharpness. To begin with, he was someone that cultivated the Tao of the sword. Instinctively, the white-robed sword cultivator turned towards the sound. As Su Zimo waved his sleeves, 18 supreme-grade flying swords hovered in midair. The swords quivered and spirit light shone brightly. As though they were alive, the 18 flying swords moved unusually and interweaved in midair, leaving behind streams of sharp, cold sword chi. As they interweaved, the sword chi sliced the void into pieces and formed an extremely mysterious formation. Candlelight sword formation. Su Zimo hollered softly. 18 flying swords gathered at the same time with their tips pointing out, resembling a blazing sun radiating with a supreme sword chi. It formed in front of the white-robed sword cultivator and the other two, defending them with a gigantic disc made of swords that spun wildly. Boom! Thousands of short spears struck the candlelight sword formation and let out a deafening bang. The entire void seemed to have quivered. Right after, the world went silent. The white-robed sword cultivator's eyelids twitched rapidly. This scene had caused his heart to leap into his throat. The candlelight sword formation paused for a moment. Quivering slightly, it let out a creaking sound as though it could disperse at any moment. Xian Yi's expression turned a little pale. If that sword formation could not hold out, they would be engulfed within a world of spears instantly and die without any corpse left. Bang! 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 After a momentary pause, the candlelight sword formation began spinning wildly once more, destroying all the incoming short spears as they turned into malevolent chi and dispersed in the air. The white-robed sword cultivator was tongue-tied and stunned. That sword formation managed to defend against the attack of millions of heavy-armored mounted riders. The Battle of Ethereal Peak spread within the territory of Great Zhou, and he too had heard about the monster incarnate of Ethereal Peak that was at Extreme Foundation Establishment Realm and could kill beyond his level. However, he truly did not dare to believe that Su Zimo would possess such terrifying might with a single attack. The candlelight sword formation had 9 levels to it. Level 1 required 9 flying swords, Level 2 required 18 while Level 3 required 27. Su Zimo had already comprehended the candlelight sword formation to Level 3. However, he had just formed his core and did not manage to refine new flying swords yet. One of the reasons for his trip to the Great Xian Ruins was so that he could seek out the legendary Khanate Spirit Fire and refine a new set of 27 flying swords. Every additional flying sword increased the power of his attacks. The power increase of 9 additional swords together with the force of the sword formation was indescribable, and its might would be terrifying. While the white-robed sword cultivator was shocked out of his mind, Su Zimo was not pleased. The Level 2 candlelight sword formation could only be used for defense passively and was nearly smashed apart. If he could create a Level 3 candlelight sword formation, it could even charge forward and mince the millions of heavy-armored mounted riders into ashes, let alone the malevolent spears. With the candlelight sword formation blocking behind, the heavy-armored mounted riders could not approach them for the time being. Up ahead, before the heavy-armored mounted riders arrived, Su Zimo took the initiative and joined his thumb and middle finger to form an obscure hand seal of the Buddhist monasteries. Fiend Suppression Seal. The ink-black malevolent chi in the skies started dispersing, as though they sensed something. Boom! There was a deafening sound. A golden palm descended from above, radiating with a golden brilliance that tore the heavens apart. Repressive void currents started surging towards the heavy-armored mounted riders in a frightening manner. The golden light spread and malevolent chi started dissolving, akin to snow meeting with a scorching sun. The dermic powers of the Buddhist monasteries were the best counters to evil. At Foundation Establishment Realm, Su Zimo could not unleash the true might of the Fiend Suppression Seal. But now that he had formed a core, the the power of his Fiend suppression seal had increased significantly. Yet, Su Zimo frowned after attacking. Something was still not right. Although the might of the Fiend suppression seal had increased significantly after he arrived at Golden Core Realm, Su Zimo could still sense that he had yet to unleash the true potential of the Fiend suppression seal. Compared to the Fiend suppression seal that was displayed by that reverend of the Buddhist monasteries in the Buddha bead, his Fiend suppression seal was still inferior, be it in terms of power, force, or intent. Before he could contemplate further, the Fiend suppression seal had already descended. Boom! The gigantic palm smashed heavily on the ground, and countless otherworldly soldiers were smited into dust as their malevolent chis were purified by the Fiend suppression seal. Up ahead, an empty area the size of a palm formed. All the otherworldly soldiers stopped for a moment in their tracks, not daring to advance, as though they were stunned by the power of the Fiend suppression seal. Su Zimo continued going forward in the hazy night, and with his powerful vision, he vaguely caught sight of a dilapidated structure up ahead. Quite a number of otherworldly soldiers revolved around the structure, but none of them entered. There were many forbidden grounds within the palace that even the troops guarding the palace could not step foot in casually. Let's go there. Su Zimo pointed forward and strode over in huge steps. The white-robed sword cultivator Xian Yi, who was carrying Lu Hui, followed closely behind. As though they could sense that Su Zimo's group wanted to enter the structure, more otherworldly soldiers swarmed towards them and attacked wildly. Su Zimo changed his saber force, turning from a sinister saber technique with torrential blood chi into a majestic aura with tides rumbling. A single slash caused a countercurrent. Coupled with the sound of tsunamis, the might was horrifying. Even the attack formed by the heavy-armored mounted riders could not stop Su Zimo's footsteps. At the back, the candlelight sword formation defended them. At the front, Su Zimo swung Blood Quencher in huge motions. Countercurrent, raging tides, vortex and ripple, Su Zimo fought in all directions and broke through the layers of obstacles, eventually bringing Xian Yi and the other two with him into the structure. The endless otherworldly soldiers behind them surged over. However, all of them stopped in the tracks when they arrived before the structure. None of the otherworldly soldiers dared to take a single step in. When they saw that, the white-robed sword cultivator and Xian Yi heaved a sigh of relief, finally calming down. Chapter 5:16, A Drop of Blood. Chapter 5:16, A Drop of Blood. Now that he was fully relaxed, the white-robed cultivator finally experienced aches all over his body. His spirit energy was nearly entirely exhausted and his robes were sticking to his body, long drenched in sweat. That escape had pushed his stamina to its limits. Instinctively, he turned to look at Su Zimo. However, that look gave him a shock. Normally, given the fact that Su Zimo was right at the front and took on most of the attacks while summoning the candlelight sword formation and conjuring a spirit art with such a terrifying might, he should be the most exhausted. But now, he was standing on the spot looking calm and breathing steadily. It seemed as though he still had energy left and he did not break a sweat at all. What sort of a stamina was that? Was he a monster? The white-robed cultivator took out a couple of elixirs and consumed them. After taking a breather, he cupped his fists towards Su Zimo and said sincerely, "Thank you for rendering your assistance, fellow Taoist Su. I am Li Ziyue, a cultivator of Ethereal Peak. I was originally exploring outside and had only returned recently." Su Zimo nodded and shifted his gaze, looking at Li Ziyue's sleeve. There was an emblem of a flying sword etched on it. That was the emblem of Spirit Peak's master. Xian Yi remarked, "Ziyue is one of the few cultivators in the sect who managed to comprehend a golden core phenomenon, and he's also a sword cultivator. As such, he can be considered as the number one of the golden core realm in the sect and has returned this time round to take over the position of Spirit Peak's master." "I'm ashamed." Li Ziyue shook his head hurriedly and said with a bitter smile, "I'm not worthy of being the number one of golden core realm. Fellow Taoist Su's strength is above mine. Your reputation truly precedes you, impressive. In the cultivation world, cultivators lived for hundreds and thousands of years and strength reigned supreme. Although Su Zimo was only a young man in his 20s right now, he had already formed his core and was in the same realm as Li Ziyue. There was nothing wrong with the both of them addressing one another as fellow Taoists. If Li Ziyue started speaking to Su Zimo with an arrogant attitude and the tone of an elder just because he had lived for more than 100 years, that would be unwise of him. Perhaps it might be acceptable within the same sect. However, if it was outside, there was a huge possibility that a large fight would break out and one could even get themselves killed. Peak Master Xian Yi, why did the three of you enter this place? Su Zimo changed the topic and asked confusedly. What happened for three peak masters of Ethereal Peak to leave the sect together? Xian Yi sighed and replied, your master's foundation was hurt during the battle at Ethereal Peak and he requires a tribulation-tiding elixir to recover. Otherwise, there's a 90% chance that he's going to fail in his attempt to break through to the nascent soul realm. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He knew that the disheveled old man was injured, but he did not expect the impact to be this great. The tribulation-tiding elixir is a grade 3 elixir and there are a few spirit herbs within that are too rare to be found. We couldn't find them in several marketplaces. However, some of the legends state that those spirit herbs might be able to be found within the Great Xian ruins and that's why we're here. Xian Yi continued, we did not find those spirit herbs in the outer perimeter of the ruins and I didn't heed Ziyue's advice and ventured deep into the center of this place. Sigh, I nearly caused all of us to lose our lives here. Cough. Right then, Lu Hui, who was lying in Xian Yi's embrace, coughed a couple of times. Her mouth opened slightly as she spat out a mouthful of black blood that carried a dark malevolent qi. Su Zimo turned to his side and took a glance with a calm expression. However, Li Ziyue's gaze narrowed as he lamented, the malevolent qi has entered her blood. Lu Hui, how are you? Xian Yi's expression changed starkly as he took out a few jade bottles hurriedly. Opening the bottles in a flustered manner, he fed all the elixirs in them to Lu Hui. It's useless. Lu Hui sighed gently. After it enters the body, malevolent qi can be purged by elixirs and the immense spirit energy of one's golden core if it did not enter deep into the bloodline. However, she was too severely injured. The malevolent qi had already infiltrated her bloodline and was circulating along with it, eating into her heart. It won't be long before her heart stopped beating. Dedaunt. Xian Yi was extremely anxious and his voice was quivering. He could naturally sense that Lu Hui's condition was getting worse, her body was turning colder and her heart was beating fainter. However, he was helpless towards such a situation. If he had the fresh blood of a pure-blooded ferocious beast that he could feed Lu Hui, that might be able to contain the malevolent qi within her body. However, they were in a ruin with countless otherworldly soldiers patrolling around them. There was no way for them to get out. They were surrounded by silence. Apart from the few of them, there were no other living beings, let alone pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly came before Lu Hui and squatted down. A wound appeared on his wrist area, clearly inflicted recently. He extended his wrist and placed his wound beside Lu Hui's lips. The moment a drop of blood dripped out, her injury started healing. Xian Yi's mind was in a state of chaos and he was only watching everything subconsciously. That drop of blood shimmered with a divine light and emanated a pure and terrifying aura. The moment that drop of blood entered Lu Hui's mouth, a massive surge of energy burst forth, rippling through her body like a hurricane and entering all her limbs. The malevolent qi within Lu Hui's body could not defend against it and was purged before long. Her heart was pounding with a sturdy strength. Rather than a drop of blood. It was akin to her devouring a blazing sun. The entire process happened within a couple of breaths. By the time Xian Yi returned to his senses, a flush of scarlet had already returned to Lu Hui's face and her body was gradually turning warm, even the massive gash on her abdomen was starting to heal. This. Both Xian Yi and Li Ziyue were stunned. Although there was the saying of lead-mercury amalgam and tsunami blood in the cultivation world, the power of blood for cultivators that specialized in spirit energy and dermic arts were way too far from those. Most cultivators did not have direct knowledge towards the power of bloodline. But now, Li Ziyue and Xian Yi, whose combined ages amounted to almost 500 years, finally witnessed what the power of blood was like. Li Ziyue sized up Su Zimo as though he was looking at a monster, remarking internally, a single drop of blood from him already contains such immense power. There's no wonder why his stamina is so strong. Another while later. Lu Hui's condition recovered immensely and she could already manage to walk with Xian Yi's support. Thank you, Zimo. Xian Yi was delighted and turned to thank immensely. Looking at the otherworldly soldiers gathering outside, Su Zimo frowned and said darkly, Peak Master Lu Hui is fine now. Let's continue inside and leave the line of sight of these otherworldly soldiers first. Although they could not enter, the fact that all those otherworldly soldiers were gathered here was not good either. All right. Xian Yi supported Lu Hui and the three of them followed behind Su Zimo into the depths of the forbidden grounds. Along the way, Su Zimo would stop occasionally and survey their surroundings. Judging from the signs left behind, he deduced that there was a high chance this was a woman's chamber in the past. From the large surface area and intricate design of the structures, this woman must have had a significant position in the palace back then. Su Zimo brought the three of them and maneuvered in this place, vanishing from the line of sight of the otherworldly soldiers before long. The otherworldly soldiers outside did not have a mind of their own at the end of the day. After patrolling for a short while, they began to disperse. Chapter 5:17, Unlucky Place. Chapter 5:17, Unlucky Place. Outside the palace. More than 20 figures flew through the air, growing clearer against the hazy night. When they arrived, it could be seen that they were all traveling without any external objects beneath their feet. All of them were golden cores. The golden cores were dressed in the same attire and had a bright moon with many stars embroidered on their clothes. A sect badge hung from their waists etched with a moon and sun. Their leader had the most immense aura and his black hair swayed. With a fair complexion, his eyes resembled bright stars that shimmered in the night. Senior brother Qian, why did you stop? A golden core behind him asked softly with a respectful expression. The leader curled his lips and looked in a seemingly casual manner towards a dark place nearby. Before long, he retracted his gaze as his eyes flashed with a look of mockery. It's nothing much. Something seems to have changed in the palace. Are we still going to enter it? The golden core behind him asked. Of course. The leader smiled. All the otherworldly soldiers of the palace are gathered towards a single direction. Let's take a look and check out what happened. With that said, the golden cores rushed towards the depths of the palace and disappeared in the night before long. After that group of cultivators vanished, 8 figures appeared from a dark place nearby, emitting sinister auras similar to ghosts in the night. Senior brother Mo, there's quite a few people from Stellar Luna sect. A golden core whispered warily. One of the 8 figures had a dark expression and was scrawnier. Faintly visible against the night, he harumphed coldly. What's to be feared about the Stellar Luna sect? Shadowless sect isn't weak either. Their leader seems to be a paragon of Stellar Luna sect, Qian Sinyu. I heard that Qian Sinyu inherited the ancient phenomenon of Stellar Luna sect, the 92nd rank of the phenomenon ranking, Solar Luna Stellar Lumen. Another person frowned and remarked darkly, earlier on. Qian Sinyu seemed to have noticed us. It's all right. The scrawny man said coldly, if it comes to a death bout, I, Mo Xiaofeng, am not scared of him. Let's enter the palace to check things out as well. Mo Xiaofeng waved and brought his 7 sect mates with him into the palace. Before long, another group of cultivators descended. There were more than 10 of them in this group, wearing scarlet robes and seemingly covered by blazing flames. Judging from their attire and sect badges, it was obvious that they came from one of the top super sects of the Tianhuang North region, Blaze Columbus Valley. Although Blaze Columbus Valley was not within one of the 9 immortal sects, their strength was not to be underestimated. Their leader was a tall man with a fiery gaze. He was none other than the genius of the Blaze Columbus Valley Inner Sect disciples, Wang Yan. Fufu, what a crowd! Wang Yan roared in laughter. To think that cultivators of Stellar Luna Sect and Shadowless Sect would be here too. This is good. I'll see for myself how much Qian Xinyu and Mo Xiaofeng have grown in the past few years. Before his laughter ended, Wang Yan led the way into the palace. Depths of the palace. Su Zimo led Xian Yi and the other two and continued exploring and advancing in the forbidden grounds. The malevolent qi in their surroundings was getting heavier and Xian Yi and the other two were not in great condition. The three of them had injuries which could not heal completely given the environment. As such, their bloodline was flowing slower and their bodies were turning colder. Noticing their condition, Su Zimo frowned to himself. If they were to continue in that heavy malevolent qi, in less than a day, even without the threat of the otherworldly soldiers, the three of them would be in grave condition. Unlike Su Zimo, they did not cultivate to the tsunami blood realm. The malevolent qi could not get close to him at all. Stopping in his tracks, Su Zimo said deeply, "Let's take a rest first. Once those otherworldly soldiers disperse entirely, I'll take the three of you to leave this place as soon as possible." He possessed universal sight and hearing and could notice the movements of the otherworldly soldiers beforehand, giving them a chance to hide in advance. Xian Yi and the other two nodded. Su Zimo asked, "What other spirit herbs are needed for the tribulation tiding elixir?" "I'll look for it after sending you guys out." Rain frost flower, purple cloud lingji, thousand-year blood ginseng and Qian essence grass, Xian Yi replied. Su Zimo had dabbled in elixir refinement before and was familiar with spirit herbs. The moment he heard their names, he could not help but knit his brows. Those four types of spirit herbs were way too rare. They were rarely seen in recent years. For example, blood ginseng could only be cultivated with the fresh blood of a living being and nurtured painstakingly, let alone 1,000-year blood ginseng. Pondering for a moment, a scene flashed through Su Zimo's mind and he could not help but remark, "When I came to the ruins, I saw that there was a gigantic ravine in the middle of the ruins. Those spirit herbs might be found inside." Pust. Li Ziyue was alarmed and gasped, shaking his head as he said with a frightful expression, "Don't go in there." "Why?" Su Zimo asked instinctively. Gulping, Li Ziyue asked instead, "Do you know how that gigantic ravine was formed?" Su Zimo shook his head. Li Ziyue replied softly, "It said that the ravine was created by that catastrophe 10,000 years ago. An ancestral-level divine dragon fought an earth-shaking war with the top experts of two great monasteries and the great Qian Empire. It was an extremely tragic battle and the capital was destroyed overnight. Countless experts, mighty figures and patriarchs of the two monasteries were killed as well." Su Zimo had heard the Azura, Yan Beichen, mention about the catastrophe before but he did not know the details. He could not help but look stunned when Li Ziyue mentioned it. A single divine dragon caused a catastrophe that killed countless living beings, toppling heaven and earth while causing countless stars to plummet. Su Zimo felt a sense of trepidation when he thought about it carefully. A few years ago, when he hid in the capital of Great Zhou after he and Night Spirit devoured a dragon egg, they were pursued by a divine dragon. If not for a mysterious expert's presence in the capital of Great Zhou that day, the catastrophe of 10,000 years ago might have repeated itself. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo asked, "What happened after?" Li Ziyue sighed gently and lamented, "Everyone knows about the aftermath. The capital of Great Qian was destroyed and that gigantic empire broke apart while the two great monasteries disappeared from Tianhuang mainland." "Is that divine dragon still alive?" Su Zimo asked again. Li Ziyue shook his head. It said that other super sects of Tianhuang mainland were alarmed by that battle and more than one emperor came forth. Eventually, with the combined forces of a couple of emperors, with the painful price of a few emperors dying, the divine dragon was killed here and buried in that ravine. A blood stench filled the air as the event was being recounted. The atmosphere was turning extremely repressive. Li Ziyue whispered, The ravine's name is called the Dragon Burial Valley, and the divine dragon was buried 10,000 years ago with the blood of old emperors and the death of patriarchs. It's an extremely unlucky place. Rumor has it that even Dharma characteristic Tao lords and conjoint body mighty figures could not make it out alive. When he said that, a sinister gust of wind blew past. Instantly, Li Ziyue's face turned frightfully pale as he shuddered, not daring to say anything more, as though he was afraid something unlucky might happen. Chapter 518, Bronze Square Tripod. Chapter 518, Bronze Square Tripod. Su Zimo went silent. At the mention of Dragon Burial Valley, even he felt a chill, let alone Li Ziyue. It was as though a pair of eyes was watching them from the darkness, causing their hairs to stand on end. Su Zimo shrugged his head to compose himself. The blood of emperors and the death of patriarchs buried the divine dragon. There must be countless dangers lurking in that unlucky place. If it was somewhere a conjoint body mighty figure could not make it out alive from, he would naturally not take the risk as a golden core. However, the rain frost flower, purple cloud lingji, thousand-year blood ginseng and qian essence grass were extremely rare spirit herbs. Where should he look for them? The tribulation-tiding elixir was way too crucial for the disheveled old man. Without that elixir, the disheveled old man would have to endure a tremendous risk to attempt at a breakthrough. Otherwise, he could only wait till his lifespan was eaten up and die of a weakened blood qi. Su Zimo strode in deep thoughts. Before long, he felt a dull pain as though he stepped on something. He did not think much about it and continued walking. After a while, he started wondering. Even without circulating his inner core or invoking his blood qi, his body was tough enough to defend against weapons. What could it be that could cause him to feel pain? A treasure? 10,000 years ago, a capital was destroyed overnight alongside two great monasteries. Countless treasures were buried in the ruins. However, Su Zimo did not find anything along the way. The forbidden grounds in the palace that he was in was extremely unusual, and there was quite a high chance that a great treasure might be buried within. Turning back, Su Zimo took more than 10 steps before he came to a stop, glaring at the ground beneath his feet with a deep gaze. Under the stone slabs and dust, a piece of metal protruded with a dull green gleam. Frowning slightly, Su Zimo waved his sleeves and cleared the slabs in the surroundings. More of the metal was revealed, looking like the handle of an object. Grabbing the handle, Su Zimo pulled it outside. Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. That unknown object that was buried in the ruins merely budged slightly. Freeing both hands, Su Zimo's eyes lit up as he grabbed the piece of metal. His bloodline surged and he exerted his entire body's strength, yanking upwards with a deep grunt. Bang! Boom! Boom! The ground shook violently and almost sank in. Coming forth from the ground, a gigantic object gradually came into view. It was a bronze tripod. Tripods were the most mysterious objects in Tianhuang mainland. In the cultivation world, tripods, cauldrons, pagodas and bells were the most difficult weapons to control, and they were not sharp. Any cultivator that could use those 4 types of weapons were not to be trifled. All 4 types of weapons had a common feature. All of them had empty space within. They could restrain and lock up living beings or other weapons. The 4 types of weapons possessed different dharmas and daos. To begin with, each of them had different mysterious powers that were frightening. For example, the bell possessed the power of sound. In the monasteries of the cultivation world, most of them possessed the gigantic bells of Buddhism. Each time the gigantic bells rang, the sounds of Sanskrit would reverberate and evil demons, ghosts, and monsters would not dare to approach. As for cauldrons, they possessed the power of incineration right after they were refined. Among them, the tripods were symbols of dignity and power. Tripods were pillars of nations and daos. A single suppression from them could stabilize the 4 seas and the 8 desolates. They possessed supreme powers and had an absolute position. In the cultivation world, most of the tripods referred to 3D round tripods. 3 legs, 2 handles and 1 base. Innately, they fit the cosmic rules and the obscurities of the Tao. The tripod before him was a 4D square tripod. Unlike the 3D round tripod that symbolized harmony with its roundness, the 4D square tripod was defined and did not fit in with the world as it stood upright. However, the defined shape of the tripod gave it a domineering look and a mighty aura. If the heavens do not tolerate me, I'll break the heavens. If the earth does not tolerate me, I'll trample on it. If the world does not tolerate me, I'll create my own world. The 4D square tripod was extremely similar to Su Zimo's character. The bronze square tripod was a meter tall. Placed upright before Su Zimo, it gave off an ancient aura. A single look was enough to tell that this was no ordinary object. Unfortunately, the bronze square tripod was filled with cracks all over and was dim without luster. It seemed to have gone through something that caused it to be destroyed. What a pity. Xian Yi shook his head and sighed. I'm sure this bronze tripod must have been an incredible weapon back then. Even if it's a Khanate spirit weapon, it's now useless in this state. There were a couple of damaged Khanate spirit weapons in Su Zimo's storage bag. For example, although the mystic gold silk armor was destroyed with its spirit patterns dispersed, the armor itself was fine and there was even a broken Khanate spirit pattern that was left behind. As for the bronze square tripod before them, the tripod itself was almost completely destroyed and there was no chance of repairing it. Even a slight knock would be able to break this bronze square tripod before them into useless metal shards. Su Zimo gave a self-deprecating smile and lamented, I must have thought too much. Now that 10,000 years have passed, even if there were any great treasures, others must have taken it away. How could there be anything left for me? Just as he was about to turn away, he frowned and looked at the bronze square tripod before him. His gaze shimmered, seemingly in deep thought. A moment later, he narrowed his eyes that suddenly shot out 2 divine lights. Taking a deep breath, he channeled his bloodline and punched the bronze square tripod heavily. Clang! The fist and tripod collided. There wasn't the dull sound of flesh being struck. Instead, a metallic sound reverberated non-stop. The bronze square tripod did not budge at all. Su Zimo did not hold back with that attack at all. Even if it was a perfect superior grade spirit weapon, it would have been broken into pieces. Expressionlessly, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and took out his coiling dragon seal. His intent was clear. He was going to test out the bronze square tripod. Furthermore, he was testing it with a Khanate spirit weapon. In any case, the bronze square tripod was already extremely battered and useless. There was nothing to feel sad about even if it was destroyed by the coiling dragon seal. However, if the coiling dragon seal could not destroy it. Tossing the coiling dragon seal out, Su Zimo channeled his golden core and shot out a stream of spirit energy from his fingertip that entered the coiling dragon seal. The coiling dragon seal shone brightly. 6 spirit patterns shimmered repeatedly before letting out a dazzling golden burst of light that resembled a blazing sun. At Foundation Establishment Realm, Su Zimo could not release the full might of the Khanate spirit weapon. But now, a change happened when his power of golden core was injected into the coiling dragon seal. The divine dragon etched on the surface came to life in that endless golden light, roaring wildly into the skies. It happened at almost the same time. The Stellar Luna sect, Shadowless sect and Blaze Columbus Valley cultivators who had just entered the palace felt the shockwave of spirit energy bursting forth from the depths of the palace. Looking over, they caught sight of a golden light shining vaguely in the night. Qian Sinyu soared into the air and gazed at the direction of the golden light deeply. His eyes lit up as he chuckled. Indeed, a great treasure has appeared. I'll definitely be able to get into the top 100 of the phenomenon ranking in the ancient battlefield 20 years later. It's a Khanate spirit weapon. In the darkness, Mo Xiaofeng of Shadowless sect came to a halt and his gaze burned. Blaze Columbus Valley's Wang Yan reared his head and roared into laughter. No longer hiding himself, He rose into the air and glared in the direction of Stellar Luna sect and Shadowless sect in an unbridled manner, shouting, "I'm going to get my hands on that connate spirit weapon. Only the strongest can get their hands on that great treasure." Qian Sinew sneered and sped towards the depths of the palace in a flash. The many cultivators of Shadowless sect and Blaze Columbus Valley made their move as well. Chapter 519, Underground Palace. Chapter 519, Underground Palace. Boom! A golden divine dragon coiled around the coiling dragon seal and descended with a terrifying might. The air currents exploded with a resounding bang. Clang! The coiling dragon seal slammed heavily against the bronze square tripod, causing sparks to fly. In the end, Xian Yi and the other three were shocked. The connate spirit weapon, the coiling dragon seal, was repelled. The golden divine dragon in midair let out a tragic cry, as though it was scared by something, and turned into a streak of golden light before retreating into the gigantic seal once more to hide. The light of the coiling dragon seal dimmed gradually. Waving his sleeves, Su Zimo put away the coiling dragon seal into his storage bag once more. The bronze square tripod stood in its original spot, embedded deeply into the mud but without much changes to it. Even after a full might smash of the coiling dragon seal, the tripod looked the same, filled with cracks, but it did not collapse entirely nor did it turn into a pile of scrap metal. Even a supreme-grade spirit weapon would have shattered against the smash of the coiling dragon seal. Furthermore, given the coiling dragon seal's reaction, it seemed as though it suffered slightly in that clash. "It's so tough." Li Ziyue was secretly stunned. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo walked forward and placed his palm on the bronze square tripod, injecting a stream of spirit energy into it. The bronze square tripod had no reaction at all. No matter what sort of a treasure this was in the past, the fact that it was destroyed to such an extent means that it could probably only be used to toss at people in the future. Whisking up the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo placed it in his storage bag. After pulling the bronze square tripod up from the mud, the ground sank in once more. Su Zimo's nose twitched and he remarked softly, "What's wrong?" Xian Yi could not help but ask when he caught sight of Su Zimo's expression. "Underground." Frowning slightly, Su Zimo murmured. Xian Yi and the others could not smell it, but his senses were extremely frightening after cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness constantly. He was even sharper than pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Su Zimo caught sight of a whiff of medicinal fragrance from underground. Strange, why is there the smell of spirit herbs underground? Narrowing his eyes, Su Zimo thought to himself, could there be another world beneath this forbidden grounds? After a moment of contemplation, he made up his mind and stomped heavily on the ground. It was a deafening crush. The ground shook and countless mud slabs and dust collapsed. Su Zimo dodged to the side and a gigantic crack opened where he stood, spanning more than 100 feet. Rows of stone steps appeared one after another, leading downwards. This. Xian Yi and the other two were dumbfounded with widened eyes. As the crack surfaced, the medicinal scent from within was even more evident. Su Zimo tilted his head and listened in. After a moment, he turned to Xian Yi and the other two. "Go, let's head down and take a look." "Be careful, we don't know what's below," Li Ziyue revealed a worried expression. "Don't worry." Su Zimo shook his head. Despite the massive commotion above ground, it was still silent without any activity underneath. There should be no danger within. The four of them walked down the stone steps and a long time later, they arrived at the bottom, surveying the place. Before them was a gigantic underground palace. Towering pillars stood one after another, filled with an ancient aura. Lining up in a mysterious order, they formed a massive underground palace. The palace was extremely spacious and was hundreds of feet beneath the ground. Even golden cores wouldn't be affected if they soared into the air. Furthermore, the air underground was refreshing and filled with a faint medicinal fragrance without any impurities. It was clear that there was another way for air to enter. Compared to the sinister atmosphere in the ruins outside with little ghosts and otherworldly soldiers roaming everywhere, this place seemed like a paradise. To think that despite the catastrophe 10,000 years ago that turned the capital into ruins, this underground palace was perfectly preserved. In fact, it was even isolating the malevolent qi outside. Without malevolent qi shrouding them, Xian Yi and the other two looked evidently better and color was returning to their faces. The four of them continued advancing. The medicinal fragrance in the air was getting more intense and even Xian Yi and the other two smelled it. It's so fragrant. By the looks of it, there haven't been any intruders in this place. Perhaps there might be some spirit herbs preserved. Xian Yi and the others were invigorated and continued forward hastily. Before long, the four of them slowed down and stopped in their tracks. Their mouths opened slightly and endless shock filled their eyes. Before them was a magnificent medicinal field that was separated into blocks with different spirit herbs. All of them grew in a splendid manner with a dazzling radiance, emanating robust spirit qi. All of those spirit herbs swayed and let out a fragrant medicinal scent. Even without any knowledge of elixir refinement, one could tell that those spirit herbs were already mature and were at least thousands of years old. The rainfrost flower, purple cloud lingji, blood ginseng and qian essence grass that the tribulation tiding elixir required were all present. Furthermore, the blood ginsengs in this medicinal field were not just 1,000 years old, but 10,000 years old. The blood ginseng's shape was already humanoid with its feet and arms vaguely forming. With another 10,000 years, the blood ginsengs would have turned into spirits. Apart from the four types of spirit herbs, there were plenty of other rare materials such as the scarlet flame bamboo, scarlet moon grass and scarlet flame fruit. Su Zimo and the others were delighted. The value of this medicinal field was unimaginable. When they got closer, the spirit qi was thicker and the medicinal fragrance almost materialized. With a slight whiff, Xian Yi and the other two felt their injuries recovering. Although they were in an underground palace, bright moonlight spilled down from above the medicinal field in a hazy, mysterious manner. Raising his head slightly, Su Zimo caught sight of a series of magnificent crystals and gems at the top of the palace that could reflect the light from outside nicely onto the field. From the outside, the underground palace could not be seen and it was merely in ruins. However, through the crystals, everything outside could be seen from this palace. It was truly an impressive design that was out of this world. This was also the exact reason why this medicinal field was buried underground for 10,000 years without withering or being discovered by exploring cultivators. Su Zimo took a walk around the medicinal field and was drawn to a particular spirit field in the middle. Although it had a large surface area, there was only a single stalk of spirit herb in it. It was scarlet all over and looked resplendent. Swaying gently, there was a green and red fruit at the top that was the size of an infant's fist. What is this? Li Ziyue also took notice of the spirit fruit and asked instinctively. I think this is a vermilion fruit. Su Zimo replied with a smile and joyful eyes. At the mention of vermilion fruit, Xian Yi and the other two widened their eyes. The vermilion fruit was one of the most famous spirit items in the world because it only bloomed once every 5,000 years before taking another 5,000 years to bear fruit. It was also known as the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. After consuming it, golden cores would experience a burst in their spirit energies and could rise a single minor realm. For someone like Su Zimo, although he had just formed his core, if he were to consume the vermilion fruit, he could advance to mid-stage golden core right away. That was not all. The vermilion fruit was a great tonic for golden cores with immense benefits. It could change their physiques to a great degree and burn away all impurities in their bodies, extending their lifespans. Of course, that was for golden cores. If ordinary mortals or foundation establishment cultivators were to consume the vermilion fruit, they would be burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. Chapter 520, Deep Underground. Chapter 520, Deep Underground. I heard that the vermilion fruit is scarlet all over and resplendent. Why is the fruit green? Li Ziyue asked curiously. It isn't fully ripe. Su Zimo replied, but by the looks of it, it should ripen within a month or so. Before it was ripe, the vermilion fruit was not a great tonic and even possessed immense poison. If ordinary living beings were to approach it, they would be affected by the aura released by the vermilion fruit and would lose their minds, falling into a deep hallucination. Most of these spirit items of the universe possessed the capability to protect themselves. This place was unusually secretive and did not have much intruders usually. Otherwise, there would be countless corpses around the vicinity of the spirit items. The vermilion fruit could only be plucked after it was ripe. Furthermore, once the fruit ripens, if it wasn't plucked within a single day, it would fall off on its own. Once the vermilion fruit makes contact with mud, all the energy contained in the fruit would flow back into the mud and return to the earth. It would be completely wasted. Su Zimo remarked, let's dig up all the spirit herbs in the outer perimeter of the vermilion fruit and give up on those inside. Don't get close to the vermilion fruit by all means. There's no hurry. The spirit chi here is robust and the medicinal fragrance is rich. We can use the chance to cultivate here for a while and our injuries should be healed before long, Li Ziyue remarked deeply. Xian Yi and Lu Hui nodded. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly and did not speak further. The most logical decision after discovering such a treasure ground in the Great Qian ruins was to dig up the spirit herbs and leave as soon as possible. The Great Qian ruins was not a kind place. Dangers did not come from the ruins alone, but also other cultivators. If any intruders were to enter and catch sight of this medicinal field, needless to think, a bloodied battle would be invoked. When he saw that Xian Yi and the other two had already assumed lotus positions to heal up, Su Zimo did not interrupt them. At that moment, he had two other doubts in mind. Firstly, there should be ferocious beasts in the vicinity of this universal spirit item, guarding it. Su Zimo believed that any ferocious beasts hiding here wouldn't be able to avoid his detection. But up till this point, he did not notice any trace or aura of any ferocious beasts. That was way too strange. Secondly, apart from the vermilion fruit, there was also the scarlet flame bamboo, scarlet moon grass and scarlet flame fruit. It was probably not a coincidence that so many spirit herbs with the power of flames was born in this place. There was an extremely high chance that the rumors about the Khanate spirit fire in the Great Qian ruins were true. A clear spirit spring surrounded the medicinal field, emitting a rich spirit chi that nourished the spirit fields constantly. Su Zimo meandered along the spirit spring and continued deep into the palace. 1,000 feet away, he arrived at the mouth of the spirit spring. The mouth of the spirit spring was a gigantic pool that was gurgling with spring water, flowing continuously for 10,000 years. This pool seemed like it was created for baths to be taken. Made with white jade, it was more than 5 meters long and had a depth of 2 meters. Exquisite drawings of fishes, dragons, flowers and birds were etched around the walls of the pool. Against the reflection of the jade, the clear spring water shimmered brightly and the fishes, dragons, flowers and birds on the walls seemed alive. A flowering crabapple blossomed in the middle of the pool. The spring water gushed and a misty fog spread. In the haziness, an alluring body seemed to form above the flowering crabapple with a pleasant elegance. Beautiful as white jade with a rouge tinge, it was extremely charming and reached into one's soul. Su Zimo felt his heart skip a beat and shut his eyes hurriedly. A moment later, he opened them again and looked over. There was nothing on the flowering crabapple except for the fog around it that changed endlessly. The owner of the pool and medicinal field should have been a woman and her status in the Great Qian Empire should have been rather imminent. Reaching out, Su Zimo splashed gently in the pond and his eyes lit up. True enough. The spirit spring was warm. There had to be a powerful source of fire deep beneath this place. He did not know what status this woman held in the past or how powerful she was to be able to create such a majestic palace underground in the capital. Not only that, she made use of the powerful fire source underground to nurture a medicinal field and turn the spirit spring into a hot spring. Circling around the hot spring, Su Zimo surveyed the ground with a keen gaze, seemingly looking for something. In theory, there should be an entrance leading underground in the vicinity of this hot spring. However, after circling a few times, Su Zimo discovered nothing. A moment later, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and fixed his gaze on a divine dragon etched on the wall of the pool. There was nothing wrong with that divine dragon. It was lifelike and its claws, scales, horns and whiskers were realistic. However, one of its eyes was missing. Was it an error in the etching? Or could it have been washed away by time after 10,000 years? Su Zimo shook his head. The possibility of both guesses were extremely low. Dot the eyes when you're drawing a dragon. Those words came to Su Zimo's mind as he murmured, dot the eyes, dot the eyes. Heading forward, he reached out and pressed gently on the spot where the dragon's eye was missing. That push caused the walls of the pool to sink in slightly. Sensing the motion beneath him, Su Zimo soared into the air hurriedly. The two stone slabs that he was standing on slid to both sides rapidly and revealed stone steps leading underground. Su Zimo praised internally. The structure could be considered as a piece of godly work. Even after 10,000 years, the mechanisms did not age and functioned as per normal. Taking a whiff at the entrance, a cold glint shone in Su Zimo's eyes. He could sense a vague hint of demonic chi in the warm air current that was surging out. In that case, the ferocious beast guarding this place should be hiding in the depths of this place. With the possibility of a Khanate spirit fire existing beneath, Su Zimo would not give up despite knowing the possible dangers lurking. Entering the tunnel slowly, he gradually disappeared into the darkness. The two stone slabs above his head closed silently, leaving no gaps. As Su Zimo ventured deeper along the descending stone steps, the surrounding temperature increased. A long time later, he came to the end of the stone steps and was clearly at the bottom of the place. Before him, there was a dark tunnel that had an unknown destination. Not daring to be careless, Su Zimo withdrew Blood Quencher from his storage bag and headed into the depths of the tunnel with narrowed eyes. The temperature was getting higher. His green robes were already so dry that a single spark could ignite them. If not for the fact that he possessed tsunami blood and a shocking physique, no ordinary golden core would be able to endure this scorching heat. If I'm not wrong, a Khanate spirit fire must definitely be hidden in the depths of this place. Su Zimo was increasingly convinced. The Khanate spirit fire was more important to him than the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. With the Khanate spirit fire, he could refine a new set of 27 flying swords and the power of his candlelight sword formation would increase significantly. Furthermore, he could attempt to repair his mystic gold silk armor and the black gold arrows he found in the ancient battlefield. If he could repair the mystic gold silk armor, it would mean that he would be in possession of a Khanate-grade defensive spirit weapon. Coupled with his physique, the power of ordinary golden cores wouldn't be able to hurt him. He might even be able to withstand the attack of an ordinary nascent soul. As Su Zimo contemplated, a series of red lights flashed vaguely from the darkness ahead. The deeper he ventured, the brighter and clearer they became. Chapter 521, Little Fox. Chapter 521, Little Fox. Before long, his vision cleared up. This was a gigantic underground cave and everywhere in sight was a fiery red. The fog evaporated as the heat wave spread over. Steaming lava flowed within the cave like a scarlet gooey river. From time to time, a bubble would pop up from the surface, causing sparks to fly. If one were to focus their attention, they could see that there were translucent flames flowing on the surface of the lava, fluid with an extremely high temperature. Khanate spirit fire. Licking his chapped lips, Su Zimo gulped. He expected Khanate spirit fire underground, but he did not expect so much of it. Furthermore, the sight before him was simply way too shocking. Burning red lava was everywhere with no end in sight and there was little ground for anyone to actually step on. There were only a few protruding rocks which were also scarlet from the heat. This was a sea of lava and a world of flames. It was too hot. Even Su Zimo's body felt a bit of burden given the heat, and a layer of thin sweat appeared on his forehead. He crushed a protection talisman. A spirit light appeared around him, forming a faint light barrier that repelled the heat wave of the lava. Now that he had cooled down slightly, Su Zimo meandered around the borders of the lava and headed in, sticking close to the walls. There should be a demon beast hidden within. He had to get rid of that latent danger, or his weapon refinement would fail if he was interrupted by the demon beast during the process. In fact, his life might be in danger. It was hard to predict the strength of a demon beast that could survive in such circumstances. There was a high chance that it could even be stronger than him. Up ahead was a turn. After the turn was still a large ocean of lava. However, there was a sizable piece of land in the middle of the lava, resembling a lone island in an ocean. A demon beast that was the size of a small mountain sprawled on the land with its eyes closed. Its body was filled with scarlet fur that had no luster, and it had a big, furry tail. It was a fire fox. In the fox race, once they cultivate to become spirits, they can take on human form, and all of them were beauties. They could be considered as seductresses and were charming. In the strange tales that were spread in the mortal realm, they were described as fox spirits that mostly seduced scholars and had an extremely bad reputation. However, after entering the cultivation world, Su Zimo knew that the fox race was considered as a friendlier race among the demon races. Despite that, he did not dare to be careless. He glared at the demon fox for a moment. It did not budge, nor did it open its eyes. In fact, Su Zimo could not even sense any bit of life from the fox. It was already dead. The fur on its body did not fall off and its flesh did not rot. It should have died less than 100 years ago. However, immediately after, Su Zimo had another doubt. By the looks of it, that fox was clearly not at the end of its lifespan. If so, how did it die? He could not see any bit of injury on the fox at all. What caused its death? Since the fox was already dead, its demonic powers should have dissipated and disappeared a long time ago. Yet, where did the trace of demonic chi that he sensed when the entrance was opened up came from? There's other demon beasts hiding here. The moment that thought struck him, he felt the sensation of being peeped at. Shifting his gaze, Su Zimo caught sight of a black basket beside the fox's corpse. The black basket looked like a pot that was flipped on the ground with mysterious patterns etched on it, revealing a couple of holes. The other holes shone with light. However, a pair of them were pitch black, seemingly blocked by two black balls. Su Zimo muttered softly. Right then, the black ball in the metal basket twitched with an unusual movement. Those were no black balls, they were a pair of large eyes. A living being was hiding under that iron basket and peering at Su Zimo through the holes on it. The next moment, the iron basket was raised slowly and a little red thing popped its head out warily, revealing its true appearance. Its flaming red long fur had a warm luster, like a blanket that one could not resist touching. The little thing was red from head to toe except for its chest, which had white fur. The combination of red and white caused it to look even more beautiful and charming. Its ears stood and twitched gently while its large eyes blinked as it tilted its head slightly, looking at Su Zimo curiously. This little thing should be the descendant of the dead demon fox and looked to be an adorable cub. The eyes of the little fox shifted rapidly, filled with curiosity and doubt, similar to a child. Standing on its hind legs, it reached out with a pair of tiny paws and raised the big black pot. When he saw that, Su Zimo broke out into laughter. In part, he was laughing at himself for being overly cautious. The little fox that was still a cub posed no threat to him at all. At the same time, the posture of the little thing was simply way too cute. When it saw Su Zimo's smile, the little fox lowered its head embarrassedly. It was actually being shy in a manner similar to humans. However, immediately after, as if it recalled something, the little fox raised its head and cried out anxiously. With its tiny paws, it tried its best to gesture, wanting to say something. However, it forgot that it was still raising the iron basket. There was a loud thud on the ground. The little fox was covered by the basket once more. Initially, this should have been a cute scene. But this time round, Su Zimo did not laugh. That was because he could not laugh. There was danger. If it was anybody else, they would not have understood the little fox's cries and gestures. However, Su Zimo cultivated as an immortal and a demon and had lived together with Monkey, the spirit tiger, Little Crane and Night Spirit. Although he could not understand the language of demons, he could make a rough guess. Little Fox's meaning was clear, it was informing him that there was danger around. This time round, his spirit perception did not give him any warning. However, Su Zimo was certain that there was a terrifying existence hiding at this place. That existence could even hide from his spirit perception. Su Zimo's conviction did not come from Little Fox's warning alone. It was because there was something else he finally understood. There was only a possibility why the demon fox died here before its lifespan was up. Another powerful existence killed it. Apart from the little fox, there was another living being in this cave. Instantly, Su Zimo's hairs stood on end and chills ran down his spine. He knew that he was now in grave danger and could die at any moment. At the same time, a mild vibration came from above the cave. Anybody else wouldn't have noticed those vibrations. However, Su Zimo's senses were way too strong. He knew that intruders had arrived at the palace above. Furthermore, there were quite a number of them. This is bad, Peak Master Xian Yi is in danger. Su Zimo was alarmed. In his moment of distraction, the lava flowing beside him splashed and a tall figure with a terrifying aura burst forth, lunging towards him. It happened at almost the same time. Xian Yi and the other two in the palace above and Su Zimo in the cave all met with danger. Chapter 522, Scarlet Armored Fiend Demon. Chapter 522, Scarlet Armored Fiend Demon. Su Zimo would have never guessed that the unknown living being would burst forth from the lava. The temperature of the lava was extremely high such that he didn't dare to touch it even with his body, let alone stay inside it. That unknown living being was scarier than he had imagined. Su Zimo's reaction was swift and without any hesitance. He burst forth with his blood chi while circulating his inner core and golden core at the same time, invoking his full cultivation. Swoosh! Straight away, he turned into his demon form and slashed in reverse with blood quencher towards the incoming figure without even turning to look. Without dodging or retreating, the person reached out and punched with a thunderous might. Clang! When blood quencher collided against the person's fist, metallic sounds actually rang as sparks flew. An irresistibly terrifying force rippled through the blade of the saber. Su Zimo's palm split open and blood streamed out. Unable to maintain his grip on blood quencher, it flew from his hand. Nearly 3 feet of the saber was embedded in the wall behind him. The power released by that fist was so horrific. It was so strong. Su Zimo had a great shock. That slash earlier was considered as his full power. Although Su Zimo released his immortality and demonic strength at the same time, his opponent received it barehanded and sent his blood quencher flying instead. The difference was too great. Before Su Zimo could react, a second punch flew over from the living being, slamming like a massive pillar with an endless ferocity. Su Zimo did not even have the chance to summon the coiling dragon seal and could only raise both arms to defend. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had been through countless battles, but there were few moments where he was forced to defend passively. It was especially so for melee combat of brute force. But now, the opponent's attacks were so ferocious and powerful that Su Zimo could not retaliate at all. Bang! The other party's fist landed on Su Zimo's arms and a dull sound of defeat echoed. Instantly, his protection talisman shattered. With a dull grunt, Su Zimo shuddered and staggered in retreat. There was a loud thud on the ground. Slamming against the wall behind him, Su Zimo's expression was pale and his arms fell limply to the side, trembling slightly. He had already lost feeling in them. The other party was way too powerful. Given the attacks, it would take less than 3 punches for Su Zimo to die here. His opponent was overwhelming everything with brute force. Even if Su Zimo had a myriad of methods, he couldn't use any of them. On the parcel of land in the lava ocean, the little fox placed the iron basket above its head aside and stood up with a worried expression. Its little paws were propped up before its chest, looking like it was praying for Su Zimo. The unknown living being exclaimed softly. It seemed to be shocked that it didn't manage to kill Su Zimo with a single punch. Leaning against the wall, it was only at this moment that Su Zimo could make out the other party's appearance. That person had red hair and a muscular body. At 2 meters tall, its face and legs had thick, coarse cuticles and scarlet scales lined its face one after another tightly. That was a body that could be described as perfect and invulnerable against fire, water and weapons. Having just exited the lava, the person's body was still dripping with steaming lava. It had a torrential dominance and looked at Su Zimo mockingly with its triangular eyes. Although the other party seemed like it was a human, Su Zimo was almost certain that it was a fiend demon. In the demon race, those at Foundation Establishment and Golden Core Realm could be called spirit demons. The moment they entered Nascent Soul Realm, they could be called fiend demons. Low-level fiend demons were equivalent to Nascent Soul Perfected Lords. Mid-level fiend demons were equivalent to Void Reversion Dao beings. High-level fiend demons were equivalent to Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. Above that, they could be considered as grand demons and were equivalent to conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo had both immortality and demonic cultivation and was even cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. In his cultivation path, he devoured half a dragon egg and great tonics such as the dragon blood elixir. He believed that on the same cultivation realm, there might be spirit demons with inherited ancient bloodlines who could be stronger than him. However, the difference between them wouldn't be this great. This was a complete suppression. The other party was a low-level fiend demon at the very least and might even be at mid-level. What should we do? Panting slightly, Su Zimo circulated his bloodline and regained sensation in his arms while contemplating. He had to get out of this place alive. The medicine field in the palace above was enough to tempt any cultivator. In the Great Xian ruins, it was common to see people killing others for treasures. That was the most straightforward and effective method. If Su Zimo were to be stuck here, Xian Yi and the other two wouldn't be able to make it out of the Great Xian ruins alive. An immortal cultivator's golden core and a demon's inner core. You seem to have quite a few secrets. The scarlet armored fiend demon smirked and looked at Su Zimo like a piece of succulent meat, remarking coolly, I'm truly hesitant to kill you since you already have such a strong body after just forming a core. But after a slight pause, it changed the topic and its gaze turned cold. You've still got to die. Anyone who trespasses into my territory must die. After I kill you, I'll slaughter all the ants above that are coveting the vermilion fruit as well. At that time, you'll have companions in hell. Foo-foo. Su Zimo sneered. Sensing the scarlet armored fiend demon's killing intent, he had nothing to fear as he shouted, Old monster, you're truly brazen with your words. I'm sure that this was the demon fox's territory initially. That fact that you're an intruder as well aside, the fact that you're spouting such big words just makes you shameless. Those words were cathartic for the little fox, but it triggered the scarlet armored fiend demon entirely. Groar. Roaring in anger, it bared its sharp teeth and seethed, Human ant, you have a death wish. Bang! 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 The scarlet armored fiend demon took 3 steps forward and arrived before Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. It gave off a scorching aura and grabbed the top of Su Zimo's head with its massive palm. If that attack struck, Su Zimo's head would definitely turn into sludge. I've got to give it my all. Su Zimo's eyes shone fiercely as he roared with his golden core churning fanatically. Golden core phenomenon, primordial soaring serpent. Boom! A primordial phenomenon that shocked the world appeared behind Su Zimo. The ground caved in, creating a series of ravines as mountains collapsed and volcanoes spewed with smoke billowing everywhere. Endless lava flowed freely on the vast lands, incinerating everything in sight as countless living beings were turned into ashes. It was the scene of an apocalypse. The lava ocean of the phenomenon seemed to be fused with the lava ocean in the cave. A massive living being crawled out from the depths of the ground with a terrifying aura. It had the head of a snake and the body of an anaconda. Red in color, it was lined with scales that stacked against one another like flaming red steel plates. It was the arrival of the primordial soaring serpent. When it saw the primordial soaring serpent, the scarlet armored fiend demon froze for a moment and it broke into an uncontrollable shudder with a flash of fear in its eyes. That was an ancient fear that was embedded in the depths of its bloodline and soul. The scarlet armored fiend demon was a fire attribute demon beast since it was able to survive in the lava. However, the soaring serpent race was one of the most ancient fire divine spirits. Chapter 523, All In. Chapter 523, All In. The hierarchy of the demon race was strict. When it saw the soaring serpent, although it was only the power of the phenomenon, the scarlet-armored fiend demon instinctively wanted to kneel on the ground and kowtow. To begin with, the soaring serpent phenomenon was created from Su Zimo's power of fire attribute being cultivated to its limits. The power of the soaring serpent phenomenon exploded even further given the fiery surroundings. Snake head, anaconda body, dragon scales and phoenix wings, the primordial soaring serpent flapped its flaming wings and opened its bloodied mouth, taking a deep breath. The steaming lava on the ground gushed into the soaring serpent's mouth relentlessly. The flames on the body of the soaring serpent shone brighter with a resplendent radiance that could almost torch the void. Looking down from above, the primordial soaring serpent shifted its gaze onto the scarlet-armored fiend demon coldly, as if it was looking at an ant. Even though it was just a golden core phenomenon, it carried the dignity and nobility of the soaring serpent race. Go! Su Zimo pointed forward. Swoosh! Both wings flapped and a fiery light surged into the air as the primordial soaring serpent lunged at the scarlet-armored fiend demon with a terrifying aura. How dare you get arrogant with a single golden core phenomenon? The scarlet-armored fiend demon shouted with a menacing expression. Suppressing the fear in its heart, it reached out with its massive palm and grabbed the primordial soaring serpent at its vital point. Pust! Suddenly, the primordial soaring serpent opened its mouth and shot out a column of lava at the scarlet-armored fiend demon. Prepared for it, the scarlet-armored fiend demon had already reached out its palm and blocked the front of the lava column. The fiery red lava spewed in all directions, rolling down from the scarlet-armored fiend demon's head with billowing steam. However, the scarlet-armored fiend demon was not injured at all. The difference in their cultivation realms was too great. Even with the increase in strength in Su Zimo's golden core phenomenon with the help of the cave's lava ocean, it could not pose a real threat to the scarlet-armored fiend demon. Although it was expressionless on the surface, the scarlet-armored fiend demon was nearly scared out of its wits. If the human ant before it managed to cultivate to its realm, the power of that single phenomenon would be enough to kill him. Thankfully, the scarlet-armored fiend demon lamented. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent, as though he had already predicted this. Patting his storage bag gently, he pulled out a gigantic golden seal and injected spirit energy into it. The coiling dragon seal shone brightly. Roar! A dragon roar shook the world and reverberated within the cave. Su Zimo's eyes lit up brightly as he took a step forward instead of retreating. Boom! His inner core and golden core churned at the same time and his blood chi rose. Su Zimo's body expanded and his sleeves ripped apart, revealing an arm with popping green veins. Raising the coiling dragon seal in his left hand, Su Zimo smashed down heavily on the scarlet-armored fiend demon's head. At the same time, he freed his right hand with the divine phoenix bone and used it as a knife. Clang! Clang! His fingernails shot out, sharp as daggers, shimmering coldly as they thrusted into the scarlet-armored fiend demon's chest. Su Zimo did not hesitate at all for this counterattack and went all in with his trump cards, killing decisively. First, the primordial soaring serpent in his golden core primordial attracted the scarlet armored fiend demon's attention. Thereafter, he closed in for the kill. That was Su Zimo's only chance. His killing move was not the golden core phenomenon, but his coiling dragon seal and the divine phoenix bone in his right hand. Poof! The scarlet armored fiend demon exerted strength in his arm, causing the soaring serpent to explode and the power of the phenomenon to dissipate. At the same time, a gigantic golden seal crushed down on his head, covering the skies. Bang! When the coiling dragon seal slammed heavily on the head of the scarlet armored fiend demon, it smacked his head to the side and his outer shell was broken, causing fresh blood to flow. It was not dead. The release of Su Zimo's power of his golden core, inner core, and blood chi alongside a connate spirit weapon only managed to break the outer layer of the scarlet armored fiend demon's head. Howl! The scarlet armored fiend demon yelled in pain. In his eyes, Su Zimo was nothing but an insignificant ant. He truly hadn't expected that the ant would be able to hurt him. Swoosh! The body of the scarlet armored fiend demon expanded massively and that head of his which was initially in human form swiftly transformed, turning menacing with bared teeth in the blink of an eye. That injury had enraged the scarlet armored fiend demon entirely. That transformation was clear that it was about to turn into its true form. Demons were only at their strongest when they were in their true forms. Pang! 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 At the same time, Su Zimo's fingernails shattered when his right hand struck the scarlet armored fiend demon's body. It didn't manage to thrust in. Su Zimo's expression changed, realizing that the situation wasn't looking good. Ever since he possessed the divine phoenix bone, Su Zimo did not take the initiative to use it and merely defended with it passively. The terrifying strength the divine phoenix bone possessed could only be triggered under intense conditions. But now that Su Zimo wanted to make use of the divine phoenix bone to break through the scarlet armored fiend demon's defense, he ended in failure. Both his killing moves failed at the same time. Su Zimo's heart sank deeply to the bottom. Bang! He did not have any chance left as a tremendous force smacked against him, causing him to fly. Ugh! Su Zimo felt an incomparable pain surging through his body as he coughed out blood endlessly. After turning into his true form, the scarlet armored fiend demon was a gigantic crocodile with a scarlet armor. Standing in the air, he wagged his thick tail and his eyes shone fiercely with blood on its head. That tail of the scarlet armored gigantic crocodile nearly crushed Su Zimo's organs. Su Zimo glided through the air without any strength, as though he was falling apart. He was defeated. He was completely defenseless. I've been through countless tough battles up till this point of my cultivation and have dominated multiple strong foes of the same level. It's tough for me to come across a true opponent, but am I going to be buried by a crocodile today? Su Zimo was in such pain that his features were contorted and his mind was in chaos. Fuzzily, he fell towards the lava ocean beneath him. Before he actually fell in, the connate spirit fire that burned on the surface of the lava had already burned Su Zimo's green robes into ashes. Initially, the little fox had a worried expression and kept its gaze on Su Zimo, worrying for his safety. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo's green robes were suddenly burned away and he turned nude instantly, revealing everything that shouldn't be revealed. Ah! Shrieking, the little fox blushed and extended its pair of tiny paws, covering its eyes. However, immediately after, a gap opened up in its paws and its gem-like black eyes could vaguely be seen through it. It did not want to peep on Su Zimo. However, it was truly worried. Yet, it did not dare to watch on brazenly, so it could only resort to such a method. The scorching sensation from the lava triggered Su Zimo's nerves repeatedly. Gritting his teeth, he focused his attention and clarity returned to his eyes. He must not give up. Until the very last moment, he must not give up hope. Circulating his golden core, Su Zimo controlled his figure hurriedly and grabbed his storage bag lest it fell into the lava. At the same time, he swept his gaze and caught sight of a hint of mockery and ridicule in the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's eyes. "It's over." The voice of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile sounded. The next moment, Su Zimo's vision blurred. A massive shadow lunged over with a blood stench. Chapter 524, Devoured Alive. Chapter 524, Devoured Alive. A grisly red tongue that was burning with flames closed in with a blood stench. The surrounding teeth were sharp and the top and bottom row seemed to form a cage. It was too fast. There was no time to react at all. Within a split second, Su Zimo was already in the mouth of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. Not good. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he was alarmed. The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile wanted to devour him alive. Given the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's cultivation realm, the terrifying strength of its bite was definitely able to turn him into sludge. At that moment, it was already too late for Su Zimo to retreat. Instead of panicking in that moment of life and death, Su Zimo calmed down. The worse the situation was, the more he mustn't panic. Otherwise, a single distraction would cause him to lose his life. Narrowing his gaze, Su Zimo's mind reeled as he contemplated how to get out of the situation. Time seemed to have slowed down. The candlelight sword formation? It won't work. Even a level 3 candlelight sword formation might not be able to break the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's defense, let alone his current level 2 candlelight sword formation. The ancient dragonification manual? It won't work. If his golden core phenomenon was dispelled by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile, nothing would change even if he conjured a true dragon. What other trump cards could help him hold out? All of a sudden, Su Zimo's eyes flashed with a glint. Without hesitation, he slapped his storage bag and withdrew a bronze square tripod that was around a meter tall. That bronze square tripod let out an ancient aura. It was the one he had picked up in the forbidden grounds of the Great Qian ruins. The tripod was lined with cracks and extremely battered but was unusually sturdy. Su Zimo did not know if the bronze square tripod could withstand the bite of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. However, that might be his only shot at survival. In a flash, his tendons and bones crackled at the same time, contorting into a lump as he squeezed himself into the bronze square tripod. Although it sounded slow upon narration, everything happened instantaneously. The moment Su Zimo entered the tripod, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile bit down fiercely. His vision turned dark. Clang! There was a crisp sound. The bronze square tripod shuddered, but it was perfectly fine. Su Zimo was elated. Although the bronze square tripod was already so battered, its sturdiness definitely made it a priceless treasure. In reality, it was also a freak coincidence. The bronze square tripod had been in the Great Qian ruins for 10,000 years. Although it was in the depths of the palace and was slightly secluded, there were other cultivators that noticed this tripod in the past. However, when they saw how battered it was, none of them bothered about it, thinking that it was just a damaged spirit weapon. Who would care about something as such when the Great Qian ruins was filled with damaged spirit weapons? If the bronze square tripod hadn't hurt Su Zimo's feet, he wouldn't have pulled it out from the mud intentionally either. Above the lava. Although the bronze square tripod was tough, it did not cause much harm to the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. To the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile, the feeling was akin to biting a piece of rock while consuming food. Without another word, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile did not care at all as it shrugged its head before coiling its tongue and devouring the bronze square tripod along with Su Zimo into his stomach. There might be things that demon beasts could not bite through. However, the powerful contractions of their stomachs and frightening acid within would be enough to turn even metal and rocks into liquid. On the lone island in the lava ocean, the little fox looked at everything helplessly. The light in its eyes dimmed as it sighed gently. After devouring Su Zimo, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile turned towards the little fox nonchalantly with a cold gaze. Frightened, the little fox hurriedly moved the iron basket at its side and hid underneath. It was as though it would feel safer doing so. As a low-level fiend demon, the scarlet-armored fiend demon was equivalent to a nascent soul cultivator. Although it could take down Su Zimo with ease, it was nothing much in the wilderness outside, particularly so among the 8 demon races. There were plenty of fiend demons among the 8 demon races, and he was merely one of the lowest-leveled ones. Among the 8 demon races, only grand and old demons would have the chance to get their hands on the charming fox race. Given the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's status with his strength, he won't have a chance to lay his finger on them in his lifetime. However, by chance, he sensed the scorching aura and with it, discovered this secret of the palace and found his way underground. At that time, the little fox was just born and not long ago. Initially, the demon fox was a mid-level fiend demon. However, after giving birth, it was at its weakest since it had lost a lot of blood chi. The scarlet-armored fiend demon seized the opportunity when its strength was greatly diminished. A massive battle broke out. The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile was injured as well. However, the demon fox was even more severely injured. Both parties maintained the standoff for a couple of years and finally, the demon fox lost out and died. As for the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile, its essence spirit was severely injured and hadn't fully recovered till now. Although the little fox saw everything, it was helpless. When it was injured, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile was furious and wanted to kill the little fox right away. However, a stray thought entered his mind when he saw the pitiful expression of the little fox. After this little fox grew up and formed an inner core and was able to take on human form, wouldn't it be at his disposal? Soon. I'll just have to wait a little more. The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile could not contain its excitement as it witnessed the little fox growing with each passing day. Chapter 525, Escape, Reverse Kill. Chapter 525, Escape, Reverse Kill. Splash. After being devoured by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile, the bronze square tripod flowed along with its gooey, smelly saliva and fell into a gigantic sealed space. Escaping death momentarily, Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and extended his head warily, scanning his surroundings with a bright gaze. This should be the stomach of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. The grisly red walls of the stomach contracted endlessly and let out a nasty stench. Lined with blood vessels that resembled little snakes slithering, the place looked horrifying. The stomach walls were lined with a layer of thick, green liquid that increased as time passed by, letting out a piercing stench. Was that the digestive fluids of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile? Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. Withdrawing a supreme-grade flying sword from his storage bag, he used it to tap the thick green liquid gently. Shing! Smoke rose. Su Zimo's expression changed and he released his grip right away. In the blink of an eye, the supreme-grade flying sword was corroded and turned into pus water. Su Zimo was shocked. If he reacted slower earlier on, his palm would have been corroded away. What a strong corrosive power. Su Zimo estimated that the digestive fluids of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile could turn him into liquid within 10 breaths. It did not matter how strong his regeneration powers were. Digestive fluids started flowing down along the walls of the stomach and Su Zimo hid inside the bronze square tripod hurriedly. He did not dare to be in contact with the digestive fluids. Gradually, the thick, green digestive fluids started accumulating within the stomach. Although the bronze square tripod was surrounded by digestive fluids, it was not corroded. In fact, even the green rust on its surface did not vanish either. Standing within the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo had a grim expression. He was not out of danger yet. The bronze square tripod was only slightly taller than a meter and yet, the digestive fluids were accumulating. Once it drowns the tripod, he would have nowhere to hide. Furthermore, the space within the stomach was limited. With the digestive fluids increasing in volume continuously, there was no way he would be able to avoid them later on. Bang! Boom! Boom! The stomach grumbled like rumbling thunder. The muscles of the stomach had started contracting. Taken by surprise, Su Zimo nearly flew out of the bronze square tripod. Steadying himself hurriedly, his face turned paler. He had to think up a way to get out of this situation as soon as possible. If this carried on, he would definitely die. In the darkness, Su Zimo's expression was dark as he glared at the stomach walls lined with gooey digestive fluids. His gaze was resolved and he made his decision. Standing in the bronze square tripod and avoiding the dripping digestive fluids, Su Zimo approached the stomach walls of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. This was his only chance. Extending his right hand, Su Zimo paused for a moment before taking a deep breath of air. With a savage gaze, he used his palm like a knife and stabbed the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's stomach walls. The flesh on his palm was the first to make contact with the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's digestive fluids. Shing! The frightening corrosive power of the digestive fluids was shown once more as the flesh on Su Zimo's right hand was completely melted, revealing a scarlet bone palm within. The divine phoenix bone. That was Su Zimo's plan. Since he could not invoke the power of the divine phoenix bone with his own strength, he would have to make use of external factors. The digestive fluids wanted to continue up Su Zimo's wrist after melting the flesh on his palm. However, as though it was triggered, the divine phoenix bone let out a terrifying aura and a thin layer of flames burned on the bone palm. Cracks appeared in the surrounding void after being burned by those flames. Although the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's digestive fluids were strong, they were burned away by the flames of the divine phoenix bone. It worked. Su Zimo's eyes lit up brightly as he thrust the blood-bone palm fiercely into the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's flesh. The divine phoenix flames surged into the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's body. Above the lava. Hovering in midair, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile was dreaming about its beautiful future when suddenly, a sharp pain surged from its stomach and it almost fainted. Roar! The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile let out a tragic howl. Initially, the little fox was fearful hidden beneath the iron basket. When it heard the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile yell, it could not help but jump. Hurriedly, it peered through the gap on the top of the iron basket and looked outside. A bloodied hole could be seen from the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's abdomen. Furthermore, the hole was expanding at a terrifying speed and would engulf his entire body before long. There was no blood dripping from the hole, all of it was burned into blood chi and dissipated in the air. The massive body of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile twisted in midair as it howled endlessly. However, it could not stop the spread of the fire. Those were the flames of the divine phoenix and were absolutely destructive, spreading from within his body. The little fox was horrified. Instinctively, it reached out and grabbed the sides of the iron basket with its tiny paws. Once again, it lifted the basket and watched everything unfold with confusion. Where did the fire come from? Why did it suddenly burn? All of a sudden, a bronze square tripod flew through the layers of flames. From it, a nude man jumped out. His hair was charred and he was pitch black in a wretched state as though he was just struck by a thunderbolt. Clang! Shocked and dumbfounded, the little fox's tiny paws released their grip and the iron basket fell to its side. Isn't that the gentlemanly scholar from just now? He isn't dead? That's great. The little fox beamed brightly and was truly happy for Su Zimo from the bottom of its heart. However, immediately after, the little fox exclaimed and covered its eyes in a sheepish manner, lamenting to itself, "But this scholar, really, why does he love to expose himself so much?" In midair, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile had not given up on trying to survive yet. He had cultivated an essence spirit as well. As long as his essence spirit survived, he would not be dead in an absolute sense. However, he was only a low-level fiend demon and his essence spirit was extremely fragile, similar to an infant without protecting. Given the treacherous environment with lava all around, it could die at any moment. However, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile could not care that much anymore. The power of the flames was too terrifying and was almost reaching his head. At that time, he would be dead for sure without the chance to even send his essence spirit away. Swoosh! A streak of light shot out from the head of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. Focusing his gaze, Su Zimo saw that it was a translucent little crocodile. An essence spirit. It was truly a fiend demon. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He saw that the essence spirit of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile was extremely fragile, unlike a combat essence spirit that did not fear daylight or ominous winds. In midair, the essence spirit of the gigantic crocodile shuddered against the heat wave of the lava and its aura turned even weaker. Low-level fiend demons were equivalent to nascent soul-perfected lord cultivators. Although their essence spirits could exit their bodies, they were easily damaged and could not linger outside for too long. The essence spirit of the gigantic crocodile sped with its might towards the exit of the cave. Su Zimo opened his mouth widely and bellowed. Kill! A gigantic explosion similar to rumbling thunder broke out from beside the gigantic crocodile's essence spirit. Thunderclap kill! Shuddering violently, the essence spirit of the gigantic crocodile turned even dimmer and cracks started appearing on its surface. To begin with, his essence spirit was injured and had not recovered entirely. Now that it received such serious injuries consecutively, his essence spirit was on the brink of destruction. Chapter 526, Danger. Chapter 526, Danger. Right then, a dark light streaked through the air. A dark iron basket descended from the skies, trapping the essence spirit of the gigantic crocodile within. The little fox extended its tiny paws with a resolute gaze, seemingly gesturing something. Instantly, it exclaimed softly and spat out a stream of demonic chi that entered the iron basket. Swoosh! A ball of flames burned furiously. Instantly, the iron basket turned red from the heat and shone brightly with a spreading heat wave. 9 golden lights appeared and shone forth from the holes of the iron basket repeatedly. They emitted a terrifying might with an unusual movement. The light of the flames surged within the iron basket. Slamming left and right, the essence spirit of the gigantic crocodile shrieked tragically, but it could not escape. It took less than 3 breaths. The gigantic crocodile's essence spirit was incinerated into ashes, dying on the spot. Even up till its death, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile did not know what happened. It would not have imagined that in the end, it would be killed by a demon weapon released by a little fox that couldn't even take on human form yet. Narrowing his gaze slightly, Su Zimo glanced at that scarlet basket in midair which shone with 9 golden beams of light and was secretly stunned. He had not imagined that the unassuming basket would possess such a terrifying might. The little fox beckoned with its paws and the 9 golden beams of light in midair returned to the iron basket before disappearing. The red light on the basket faded gradually and once again, it reverted to its black iron pot shape and flew back to the little fox. The little fox should be elated with the death of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile after getting its revenge. However, at that moment, it turned back to look at its mother's cold and lifeless body, slightly dazed and lost. Su Zimo sighed gently. Originally, he had another doubt in his heart. Since the scarlet-armored fiend demon was a low-level fiend demon and had already cultivated an essence spirit, it could make use of dermic powers and release demonic arts. However, right from the beginning, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile engaged him in melee combat. Even at its last moment, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile had not released a single bit of dermic powers. It was until this moment after Su Zimo escaped death that he came to a gradual realization. The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's essence spirit must have been severely injured by the demon fox and had yet to recover. That was the reason for everything. If the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile was able to use its dermic powers and release demonic arts, the outcome would have been worlds apart. Even with the bronze square tripod and the help of the divine phoenix bone, Su Zimo might not have had the chance to injure the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile severely. To a certain extent, this was probably the work of fate and due karma. The little fox made a pseudo-bow towards Su Zimo and cried softly, expressing its gratitude. She was extremely smart. Although the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile died in her hands, she would not have had the chance to take revenge if not for Su Zimo. Withdrawing a set of green robes, Su Zimo got dressed and descended on the ground once more. Although the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile was dead, Su Zimo was not in the best condition. After receiving 2 consecutive punches from the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile and a heavy whip from its tail, Su Zimo's body was aching from top to toe and felt like it was breaking apart. Gritting his teeth, Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and moved, staggering towards the exit of the cave without time to recuperate. Xian Yi and the other 2 were still in the palace above. If the cultivators that arrived truly had ill intentions, Xian Yi and the other 2 would be in mortal danger. Underground Palace. Stellar Luna sect was the first to arrive and more than 20 golden cores barged into the underground palace. Without concealing their tracks, they charged right in and saw the medicinal field in front before long. What a rich medicinal fragrance. There's so many spirit herbs that are over 10,000 years old in this massive medicinal field. Our trip wasn't wasted at all. Look. It's a 10,000-year vermilion fruit. The eyes of everyone from Stellar Luna sect lit up with a fervent gaze. It's about to ripen. We're just in time. A Stellar Luna sect cultivator remarked in a fawning manner, in my opinion, Senior Brother Qian is the only one in the Tianhuang North region qualified to get his hands on this 10,000-year vermilion fruit. Qian Sinyu's hands were behind his back and he had a relaxed attitude. Although he was greatly pleased upon hearing that, he merely smiled without saying anything. Hee hee. Suddenly, a cold sneer sounded from the darkness. A series of spectre-like figures walked out. Although there were only 8 of them, each of them let out an aura of extreme danger that sent chills down one's spine. Shadowless Sect. Senior Brother Qian, their leader is the paragon of Shadowless Sect, Mo Xiaofeng. Qian Sinyu replied calmly, as though he had already expected this. Smirking coldly, Mo Xiaofeng said with a scoff, Qian Sinyu is the only one in the Tianhuang North region qualified to get his hands on the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. What brazen words! Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Oh. Qian Sinyu smiled faintly and rebutted, what do you have in mind, Brother Mo? Nothing much. Mo Xiaofeng replied coldly, I'm merely giving a kind reminder that you're not qualified to be regarded as the best of the younger generation in the Tianhuang North region. Insolent. How dare you compare yourself with our senior brother Qian? Humph, the golden core phenomenon that senior brother Qian cultivated is ranked 92 on the phenomenon ranking. What are you? Many Stellar Luna sect cultivators shouted. Snickering, Mo Xiaofeng replied, if it comes to a death bout, we don't know who will stand out just yet. The moment he said that, the atmosphere between Shadowless Sect and Stellar Luna Sect turned extremely tense, as though a massive battle could break out at any moment. Ha ha ha. Right then, a long laughter sounded, brazen and unbridled. How can I miss out on such a happening situation? When he heard that, Mo Xiaofeng's expression changed. Qian Sinyu, who was initially calm, frowned with a wary look in his eyes as well. More than 10 golden cores with flaming red robes entered the underground palace. Their leader was a tall and dignified man who strode over in huge steps. Emitting a scorching hot aura, he was none other than the paragon of Blaze Columbus Valley, Wang Yan. Qian Sinyu's golden core phenomenon, Solar Luna Stellar Lumen and Wang Yan's Raging City Blaze were both in the phenomenon rankings. Furthermore, Raging City Blaze was ranked 89. Slightly higher than Solar Luna Stellar Lumen. Very good, very good. Sweeping his fervent gaze across the crowd, Wang Yan nodded with a raring battle intent. Since everyone's here, I'll declare that the medicinal field and 10,000-year vermilion fruit are both mine. Anyone who disagrees will be suppressed by me. Humph. Mo Xiaofeng harumphed coldly. Aren't you afraid of dying from your greed? Brother Wang, there's an order to things. Qian Sinyu shook his head gently and remarked indifferently, Stellar Luna sect was the first to discover the medicinal field and vermilion fruit. Ha 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 ha. Wang Yan burst into laughter and pointed to 3 people beside the medicinal field. Qian Sinyu, stop pretending to be righteous. If you want to talk about order, the 3 of them are the first to discover this place. What has it got to do with you? Xian Yi and the other 2 had been at the side of the medicinal field the entire time. However, after the golden cores of Stellar Luna sect, Shadowless sect and Blaze Columbus Valley entered the place, they were arguing about how they should split the medicinal field and were completely oblivious to the 3 of them. It was at this moment that everyone's attention gradually focused onto Xian Yi and the other 2. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.